All right, we are live on All Politics Are Local, and we are America's number one political hip hop talk show. And this week, we're taking off. Ed is taking off. I'm taking off, and so is Zaid. All kinds of cool stuff happening, and we'll fill you in on that, some of that next week. And as for this week, it's also my first wedding anniversary, so yay! Very happy about that. A whole year of marriage, and so we're having we're. So I'm very happy to be enjoying that as well. So, but we are not going to leave you with nothing. We are going to leave you with a flashback show. And our flashback show is from the Payne Report in May 2023. Oh, man, that was a great show. And in the first part of that show, there's Kelly Harris, and Dr. Kelly Harris from working now at UPenn, and he then was working with Seton Hall and talking about Africana Studies and what pressure it's under nationally. Looking at it 2 years ago, and looking at that interview 2 years ago, there's a lot that's he's very predictive, and it also gives us the historical trends to make this happen. We like doing our flashback shows because they're always very, very good to look back on what only 2 years would bring. We also have Keesha Eure, who is on and talking about Newark's anti-violence programs within the city of Newark and the Operation Ceasefire that was there. And of course, if you know what's going on in Newark in the last few weeks, that is also something that we always look back on to learn about what's going on now. We also have the Payne Report with Congressman, our late Congressman and our friend, Donald Payne, who is on it. And he's on it with his uncle, William Payne. And that's just a fascinating interview. We had a lot of fun doing that interview. And in that interview, he's giving us all sorts of bits of history. He's just throwing stuff out there like, yeah, when I debated Malcolm X, or like, no, seriously, like you have to see the interview. It's a fun interview with our friend, Congressman Donald Payne, and his amazing, brilliant uncle who has a history of politics within the city, William Payne. So we're going to start that right now. And thank you a lot for coming in to our show again, and we'll be live with you next week. So enjoy our show, the Payne Report from May 2023. On for as long as we've been in America. So they're both contemporary controversies, stuff that's popping off right now, but these same controversies have been going on for literally hundreds of years, right? So the first time that we're going to start off with Dr. Kelly Harris, professor of Africana Studies at the University of Pennsylvania, newly at the University of Pennsylvania, and formerly the chair of Africana Studies at Seton Hall University. And I want to thank him for coming on. We're going to be talking about the controversies in Black studies, Africana studies, both locally and nationally, as it's in this controversy. There's a protest going on at Seton Hall University right now to try to get Africana studies taken seriously. And we're going to talk a lot about that specific situation. And we're also going to be talking about like the larger national situation, like even as going down to the high schools and getting AP English taught and taking people out of the curriculum. And like, there are a lot of controversies to talk about that. And the new is also old. And that's one of the reasons why we love having Dr. Harris on, because he's going to be talking about the historical implications of these as well. We're going to be followed at 6:45 by Keesha Eure. She's the director of violence prevention programs for the city of Newark. She's been doing some groundbreaking work on that nationally. She was featured in the Nation, or the work that the office is doing. It was featured in the Nation magazine, and has been talked about all over the country. Even Biden has been making nods to the program that's been going on in Newark in terms of violence prevention programs, a different way of looking at policing. This has been a controversy. There's been a controversy for as long as there've been police, but heated up after George Floyd. People talked about defunding the police, but Newark has been ahead on that, right? And has been ahead in a way that, it might not sound as like sexy. It might sound, even a little boring at times, but they have some programs that are pretty that are very much in the head. But that doesn't mean there aren't current controversies. So we're going to be talking to Keesha Eure about ways that North can be better given the programs that it has. Finally, we're going to have DJ Rhino and the state of hip hop. DJ Rhino is going to be talking about AI and hip hop. That should be fun conversation coming up at 7:30. And finally, we're going to have Congressman Donald Payne on the Payne Report, and that's coming up at 8 o'clock. He's going to be telling us what's going on in Congress and the latest controversies there. So we've got a full show. We've got a thoughtful show. We've got a packed show. Ben, we're going to start off with our first segment. So welcome, Dr. Kelly Harris. We are very glad to have you on again. Honored to have you, man.
Well, thank you.
So right now, we'll just jump right into it. You were chair of Africana Studies at Seton Hall University. And
yes, I was the director of Africana Studies at Seton Hall and a faculty member. But I do need to correct one thing. I'm not faculty at University of Penn. I'm an administrator. So I'm the senior staff director for the Center for Africana Studies at the University of Pennsylvania. So
nice,
I want to correct. Yeah, so I want to make sure that that's clear. So
I appreciate that. We're going to ask for and I'm also going to ask for the differentiation on that, because it seems like, am I wrong in saying that you have the power to actually help create or recreate a great program?
Well, we have a Center for Africana Studies and a Department of Africana Studies. So the center is responsible for programming, engaging students, engaging the community, and things of that nature. So really, my task really is to continue with the programming, but also to figure out new ways that we can engage the external community.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, thank you, man. And thank you for that clarification. You were chair of Africana Studies at Seton Hall. You left.
Yes.
There's a protest going on right now at Seton Hall University. What's this protest about, and how does it relate to your experiences, if you want to talk about that?
Sure. No question. First of all, we all need to applaud the students who are protesting. And one of the things that frustrates me that I think some administrators don't get is that these students are doing exactly what a good education is instructed them to do, is to take leadership, to learn to take leadership and to find their voice. And what the students are doing now is that they found their voice. They're advocating for themselves. They're doing it in a peaceful manner. They're doing it and they've engaged in different conversations. And the protest was the last step that the students took. So we should applaud them in how they've organized and how they galvanized the community and the students. They've done a great job. So for me, I was offered a tenure track. I came to Seton Hall in 2019 on a contract. I was a tenured professor at Chicago State University. I was director of chair of Africana Studies there, but also interim dean of the Honors College. I left that. I gave that job up for personal reasons, and I came to Seton Hall on a contract. The contract was for 4 years. My contract was coming to its end. I came in 2019, so my contract was coming to its end last semester. They offered me, they opened up for a tenure track position. They offered me a tenure track position at the assistant professor level. I didn't agree with the numbers that they had. I didn't agree with the rank. So for me, it became frustrating because the university didn't negotiate anything. And, I was always taught that, a contract, when somebody offers you a contract, that's really the first step in negotiation. And they didn't want to negotiate anything. We have a part-time adjunct there. I tried to negotiate to get him to be a full-time lecturer. They didn't want to do it. I tried to see if they add other full-time faculty. They didn't want to do it. They didn't want to commit to it. They cut every director at Seton Hall has one course release time. They didn't want to give me the one course release time. So they didn't want to do it and they didn't want to negotiate my rank. So they didn't want to do anything. And that to me was the icing on the cake. And this is the reason I left. Now, the students are protesting not simply because of the reason I left, but because Seton Hall has a history of underfunding and undersupporting Africana Studies at Seton Hall. During the 1970s, when it was first founded by Monsignor Fay, and working with the Black Student League, working with Amiri Baraka and other activists in Newark, New Jersey. They built the Black Studies program. It had 5 full-time faculty members at one point during the 1970s. We were able to give Alex Haley his first honorary doctorate. We were the first Black Studies program in the state of New Jersey. We were the leading Black Studies program in the state of New Jersey during the 1970s. But it slowly declined. They didn't replace faculty, and we were left where we were when I was there, with 1 full-time faculty member in the department, in the program. And it went from a department to a program. So you cannot build anything worthwhile with just 1 full-time faculty member. All the courses are cross-listed, which happens a lot at different universities. But the problems with that is, while my colleagues are good at what they do, and they're well-meaning and they know their stuff, Africana Studies is a discipline. And there are people trained in the discipline who can teach, who should be teaching in the discipline. And it shouldn't, and so that's what the students are advocating for. They want a fully funded department. They want faculty members, more than one. They want 3 to 4 faculty members. They want a director that's separate from the faculty lines, so they can really build the program. That's really showing support for the program.
Okay, so let me break this. Let me get this right. At Seton Hall University, in their Africana Studies program, there's only 1 full-time person?
Right. And even now, yes. And even now, they don't even have 1 full-time person because I left. So Reverend Dr. Pritchett, who's wearing 100 hats at Seton Hall, he is now the interim director, in addition to being the director of the MLK Leadership Program, in addition to being a special advisor to the provost. So he's wearing 1,000,000 hats. In addition to having to teach a class, we have and we have 2 adjuncts who are teaching right now in the program. So there is no full-time faculty member currently in the program.
So clearly, right, you put your money where what you value. Clearly, they don't value any level of Africana Studies. And what I think you bring to it is, what is the way that a university can show that it has no respect for the discipline, but yet still say we can offer him a job? Like, is that like a strategy? Is that a thing? Like we offered him a tenure track position,
right?
But was the way in which it was offered, right? Like, they have 1 full-time person. There's no chance. Like, you're chair of Africana Studies at Seton Hall, but there's only 1 full-time person. You're chair of yourself. Like, what does that mean?
So here's the gist of it. And you raise an excellent point. So people will say, well, they offered him a job. What's the problem? And there's a couple problems with that. In addition to the pay being a problem, and people will also Seton Hall will say, well, we offered him what we pay people at the assistant professor level. I disagree with that. And Seton Hall faculty are underpaid. So this is a bigger issue than just Africana Studies and what they offered me and how they support me. Seton Hall faculty are underpaid. So nobody should volunteer to say, okay, I want to be underpaid too. 2, the interdisciplinary programs, in addition to Africana Studies, are also underfunded and under supported. Women's studies, Latino studies, environmental studies, they're all undersupported. So it's a larger issue. Africana Studies really is the tip of the spear when we think about what's happening at Seton Hall, and they don't. So really, for me, having me in the position was a performative act for them. Offering me the job was a performative act for them. So really, what happens is my leaving really was better for the students, and now let me explain that. Because if I was still there, if I kept the job, the students may have been still lulled to sleep a little bit more, and they may not have protested in the way that they're doing now, because I would have been in the position. The students respect me, but the fact that I'm not there, students can really see the issues even clearer now, and so the university messed up in what they were doing. It's an easy lift. All they had to do was hire a few more faculty members and show some support, because you really cannot say you're really supporting a department or think a program is important if you don't hire faculty for the program.
Like, you're a department of 1. So
correct. It's a program. It's a program. So they moved it from department status a while ago. It's a program.
So what does that mean to be like? What does it mean to be a head of a program where you're the only full-time? Like what does it even mean?
Right. So through the classes with other faculty members, for them, Seton Hall would say, well, we'll support it more when you get more majors, right? But I'll give you an example, and it's not apples to apples example, but I'm still going to give the example. I'm at University of Pennsylvania now. We have more majors at Seton Hall than we do at University of Pennsylvania, right? But we have a lot more faculty members at the University of Pennsylvania in Africana Studies than Seton Hall has. So there's a commitment to it. And not only that, the commitment is the value that Africana Studies has and the faculty has to the overall curriculum of the university, to the overall education of the students at the university, right? Seton Hall has not embraced that. Jonathan, I can't hear you on mute.
Can you break down what that means, right? Like you're saying that at UPenn, they have fewer courses.
No, fewer students, fewer majors.
Fewer majors.
But more faculty.
Fewer majors, more faculty.
Mm-hmm.
How does that translate into commitment?
So that translates into commitment because the university is saying, one, we're confident that the program is going to build, but even beyond that, we know the value that this discipline has to our overall curriculum. Mm-hmm. And we want to expose our students to what that curriculum brings to higher education.
So it is a affirmative, like they're saying, hey, we value this as an institution because we think this is important.
Correct. And that came out of struggle too. Let's be clear. When we look at University of Penn, it came out of struggle. Students protesting, same thing happened at Seton Hall, same thing happened at Penn, same thing happened at Howard, same thing happened at all these universities across the country. Students and community activists and faculty members protested in the late 60s to bring Black studies into higher education. So it came out of a struggle, right? It came out of a commitment for that. And people have had to still struggle to make sure that these programs get the resources they need, get the faculty that they need, and that they're not, consistently under assault by these administrations. So Seton Hall is just going backwards. Seton Hall is going in the other direction. They've gone in the other direction from Monsignor Fay from when the program started. And they right now, they've dug their heels in, and they're just being, recalcitrant.
Now, I remember Ed and being on the campus of Seton Hall in terms of at Upward Bound program, but that's where I met Ed Riley, I met Bashir Akinyele, and I seem to remember protests about Africana Studies back then.
Right.
And
exactly.
So here's a question I have, right? Seton Hall, like my personal experience with Seton Hall in terms of just being on the campus, both in Upward Bound and when working with Ed Riley early on, it just felt like one of the most racist campuses I've ever stepped on, in that it was I felt that it was more like the kids on the campus, the faculty were looked at Black people as in, you're the reason why I didn't get into a better school, right? And it was just this kind of like, I think you have more than me kind of feeling, which it just seemed like there was a hostility at Seton Hall's campus that I didn't feel on a lot of other campuses. And was that just my imagination? Is there, and the reason why I'm asking this question is, students have been protesting for Africana Studies, Black Studies for years. It's decades, right? And at every juncture, they give, and then they're like, nah, and then they give, and then they're like, nah. Do they just not, do they, is the reason why they do that is because they can? They don't really want?
They haven't taken the time to learn about the discipline, to understand the discipline. They haven't taken the time to do that. So when you say you love somebody and you find that they're important and you value them, you take the time to learn who they are. and learn what they're about, learn what they value, learn what they bring to the table. Seton Hall hasn't done that. They don't care to do that. Even though it's been on display when we see what Africana Studies has done and people in Africana Studies at Seton Hall has done. And of course, we could say the same thing nationally, what Africana scholars have done nationally. It's on display. It's been on display for 50 years. So people just need to open their eyes and not be ignorant. But Seton Hall, so I give it a perfect example. When I first came to Seton Hall in 2019, the next semester, my second semester, we had a retreat for the faculty, for the administration, for the students about Africana Studies. And we had Dr. Nathaniel Norman, who had been for years the chair of the Department of Temple University's Africana Study program. He came as our moderator, as our facilitator. And he also has an excellent, one of the best books on Africana Studies, edited readers on Africana Studies in the field. So he came to break down Africana Studies, to talk about the discipline and all those kind of things. The president didn't even stop by to say welcome. The provost didn't even stop by to say welcome. The dean at the time, he did, who's no longer the dean there. He's a faculty member there now. But he came through. But the upper administration did not. And the upper administration, in terms of the provost and the president, at my time there, they never had a discussion with me about Africana Studies. Yet they talk about how important the discipline is to them and how they support it and they want to, do all these things. Not one time in my time there have they had a discussion with me, with the exception of the president when he met with some veterans of the Concern 44 movement in 2019 when we first got there. That's the only time that I ever seen him sit down. I ever been at the same table with him when Africana Studies was the issue. So I think they're fearful of it. I think that they're stuck on stereotypes about what Africana Studies is or might be. I think those stereotypes for them are sufficient for them to think they know what the discipline is.
And what would be those stereotypes? Like you're saying stereotypes about Africana Studies. What are those stereotypes? What are people dealing with?
I think that they think that it's not a discipline, a value discipline in the same way that a scholarly discipline in the same way that political science might be, or history might be, or clearly the natural sciences. So I think that's a part of it. I think they could put anybody in there. I don't think they think that what we research is serious work. I think they think we're activists and not scholars. I think that's a part of it. I think those things underlie it. And other things too, maybe even in terms of reverse racism and all those kind of things. So I would gather that that's probably what they think about when they think about the discipline.
You said reverse racism? Like,
yeah.
Like I don't even understand in the context of not funding Africana Studies.
Well, it is illogical. It is illogical. But see, they'll say, well, we support the program by, we give you money to bring in speakers or whatever. That's fine and dandy. But here's and it's important, but here's the deal. I'm sounding like Joe Biden now. Here's the deal. You cannot have a robust program or department and curriculum, right, without having the faculty to develop the curriculum.
Right.
The strength of the program is the curriculum that you offer. It's not in bringing in a speaker, which is important.
Right.
But that should be a supplement, a complement to the curriculum. It shouldn't be the major thing. So when you only have one person, the major thing is going to be, okay, what speakers can we bring in, right? Or let's give a lot of money for Black History Month. So that's not, And another thing that I think Seton Hall is doing, is that a lot of other universities are doing as well, is, well, they're putting money into DEI. And they're doing that because DEI is not faculty.
What is DEI?
Diversity, equity, and inclusion.
So,
right?
So you're saying that they're diverting money from Africana Studies, from Black Studies, to put in, quote, diversity and inclusion.
I'm not saying that they're diverting money. I'm saying that they're investing in DEI and they believe, and they wouldn't say this publicly, but they believe that DEI is an alternative to Africana Studies or a complement to Africana Studies. So when people want to say, well, what are you doing about race and all these issues? Well, we got DEI. This is our DEI initiative. This is what we're doing. So even I shouldn't say they're not saying it publicly, because they actually are. In the statement that the president sent out in response to the student protesters, he had a bullet point list of, well, this is what we're doing for Africana Studies. One of the things was that they named Dr. Pritchett the interim director. He's been there for 45 years, and that backfired on him. I'll talk about that in a second. The other thing that they said is we invested $65,000 in our DEI initiatives. So that for them is what they, is supporting Africana Studies, but it's not.
Right. Like DEI is the entire university. You're talking about gender issues. You're talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion is like including everyone, right? Like, so if there's
and my criticism of it, and it has been to me, it's very performative. It makes people feel good, which it should. I mean, we should be about trying to make people feel better. But for us, for Africana,
right?
For us, for Africana Studies, we're not trying to just make you feel good. we're trying to move people to see how this world needs to change, right? We're trying to be change agents. It's not just a feel good thing. Hey, we can all feel good together, So they've invested in DEI, I think, and they think that that's an alternative to.
Which is insulting because DEI is not an academic discipline.
It's not an academic.
It's really just how do you not kill each other on campus?
It's not an academic discipline at all.
And it's like, how do you avoid a lawsuit?
Yeah, exactly. But see, and Seton Hall shares this with a lot of other institutions. A lot of institutions across the country are doing that. DEI is like a cottage industry now. It's so many DEI programs, and I wish I had a statistic in front of me. And what's interesting is I believe is either less than and Ty Burrows, who's chatting on here with us. Ty can put that statistic in there. He probably knows it. I think less than 20% of DEI programs across the country are led by African Americans.
Wow.
And Ty, Dr. Burrows, please check that if you can. Do a quick fact check. So it's interesting what universities are doing with DEI because it's not academic program.
Right.
DEI, they see DEI as something that they can control. They can control that narrative. They can control the direction of it. Faculty thing they can't control because we have the academic freedom.
But you know what's interesting though, Dr. Harris, that is exactly what people say in corporate America, right? So the answer in corporate America, instead of promoting more blacks to CEO, to executive vice presidents, they put in someone based around DEI. And that's one of the arguments that Black Enterprise has been making recently. That's all well and good, but this glass ceiling, right? Sort of like what we're experiencing at Seton Hall. It's fine to put this program in, but you get rid of a Dr. Harris, who not only is more than qualified to run this program and to grow it, but the students love, right? So how do you do that? And that's the point I was making when you were here, Dr. Harris. I think that we also dropped the ball because I think that yeah, Dr. Pritchett been there 45 years, but there should have been more community pressure, right, put on this university. And even now, right, I think what the students are doing, I think we need to, the community, we need to begin to amp this up a little bit because it doesn't seem to me like Seton Hall is actually willing to move the ball down the court. It seems like they want to do as much as they can to stall it. But you know what I'm reminded of, Jonathan and Dr. Harris? I'm reminded of Mayor Baraka having told me, and I don't know if you was on, John, when he shared the story about how when they shut the campus down at the President's Hall on Howard University because they wanted to have more Black faculty. And they did the same thing. And of course, they stayed so long that the Black president wanted to have the kids removed violently by the police, and it was of course Mayor Barry who prevented that from happening and ordered those people to meet with those students. because, as you know, these people at Seton Hall aren't even willing to meet with these students and discuss
No,
what's going on
yeah,
with them.
their ultimatum is we'll meet with the students once they leave the building. You know,
Wow.
so that's what they're saying. But not only that. Chris, my bad, Chris. I'll get back to you, brother. So I'm sorry. The other thing is that it's interesting. The example you give of Howard when Mayor Baraka was there as a student protesting, those same issues were in 1960s when Howard students at Howard University protested, and they took over the president's building, and they demanded a stronger curriculum, and they were threatened by the administration of having the police come in there and all that kind of stuff. So unfortunately it's the same thing. And Dr. Carr, who will be on here next week, he could definitely talk about that in even more detail.
Yeah, it seemed to me, Dr. Harris, that the only way, and Jonathan is right. I mean, we were there over 30 years ago, and we were fighting for the same issues, man. And so it's just one thing after another, and when these people say, well, we're willing to talk to these students when they leave, that happened, Jonathan, too, believe it or not, with Dr. Brown, when she was at Rutgers University, and of course the great Lou Mize, when he was, when they were students at Rutgers University, when they were trying to get more Black faculty. So this Dr. Harris goes from generation to generation with us, man. And it just seemed like, and if we look politically and we look at what's happening with Santos in Florida, it just looks like they, under no circumstances are we supposed to be allowed to teach the proper, and as my brother Bashir says, the proper and factual history, right, of Black people. And if it is to be taught, they obviously don't want Black faculty to teach it. And I don't know why we continue to accept that, and we don't begin to organize in a way that we should organize in order to get it done. And I think that's why we should definitely stand with these brothers and sisters, these young people at Seton Hall, and making sure that the same thing Barry did, trying to make sure that we force this faculty up there to meet with these students and take a look at their demands and be willing to say publicly what they're really going to do, as opposed to having these private conversations where nothing get done.
That's right. And I told the students, do not allow private conversation to happen. That's what the university wants to have, a private conversation with 2 to 3 representatives of the students. And the students are adamant, and I agree, and I keep telling them, do not allow that to happen. Because we know what can happen when you get behind closed doors. But the DeSantis thing in Florida is interesting, and that we have to understand, this is what the white nationalists do. And it's a consistent thing. We saw it at the end of Reconstruction. We saw it at the as a response to migration in the Great Migration in the early 20th century. We see it at the end of the Black Power and the Civil Rights Movement. We see a white nationalist revolt during then, which they call a conservative movement, and we see it today. It's a rebellion against Black people and their allies, organizing more, not only around Black Lives Matter movement, but organizing more and protesting the Trayvon Martins and the like. And for states who had been having these Amistad commissions, and people starting to embrace to some little bit the idea that you have to have African American history taught throughout the curriculum. And the thing is, even these white nationalists, they're fighting against something, and they still don't know what it is. And we have to be clear about that. The thing about Africana Studies that we have to remind people is that it's interdisciplinary, and it's political science, it's history, it's sociology, it's social work, it's English. So we have to be clear about that.
Yeah.
Oh, so Jonathan, so Todd put in there, 76.1% of all chief diversity officers are white.
Wow.
And only 3.8% are Black or African American.
Right, because like the whole concept of diversity, it's diversity, right? It doesn't require study. It doesn't require academic discipline. You get techniques for how not to kill each other on campus.
That's right.
How do you get along? How do you fight in the workplace? How do you avoid a lawsuit, right? How do you basically diversity and inclusion is how do you avoid a lawsuit? We don't want discrimination lawsuits. We don't want these sexual harassment lawsuits. We need diversity and inclusion so that the lawsuits go down and we don't pay these legal fees. So let's pay people.
DEI, one could argue that DEI is in place to help make white people feel better.
Right. And all that came about because of George Floyd, right? Remember, there was this big incline of that happening. And that was one of the conversations I heard the other night with the sister who was one of the original founders of Black Lives Matter, where she said that they got that infusion of $60 million over the pandemic, which they've never gotten that much money. That was because white people felt guilty, and the only organization that sounded like it justified them under the DEI perspective was to be able to donate that money to them. And they didn't know any other organizations. So it was like, well, let's give that money to them. And then hopefully they could disseminate it to all these Black organizations on the ground. And that's what she was saying the other night, that they were left with that most Black folk didn't understand, because for them, Black Lives Matter, the organization concept of it came from a hashtag, right? Yeah. And so all of a sudden now they're thrust with trying to handle white people's guilt. So when you say that, Dr. Harris, you're absolutely right. I mean, you know, when we look at what's really taking place in America, and this is why I say brothers like yourself is important, Dr. Harris, because you are you represent this whole other generation in order to be able to continue to beat the drum for our ancestors. And I think that it's necessary for us to make sure that we're not only supporting you, but we're supporting your students, because these young kids and you already know all the changes that ever occurred in our movement has actually occurred because of young people, right? And that's why what they're doing is important. And of course, Todd put that book up there with a man when he was 19 years old, standing up and doing the fighting he was doing. So I mean, obviously, you know, I think this is a real telling moment for Seton Hall. And I think that what we've got to do, Jonathan, is we've got to begin ourselves as a media organization. What we've got to do is begin to we've got to expose that, and we've got to start telling that and embarrass this university by telling that truth.
And the alumni has to be engaged. I think that's very important. And I want to put a pin on this diversity piece by saying this: Africana Studies has diversified higher education, right? And democratized higher education. And it reminds me of a scholar who just passed a few weeks ago, Dr. Robert Smith, brilliant scholar, who wrote the book. One of his most famous books is "We Have No Leaders," which gives a great piece on post-civil rights era Black politics. Robert Smith always says, and he's like a dean of Black politics, the study of Black politics in this country. Robert Smith would always say, you know, Black people had a vision of democracy that this nation, broader than what this nation intended. And we always had to be clear about that, because oftentimes Africana Studies is seen as being narrow and parochial, when we're not. And and people have to say that. Just because you say it's Black don't mean it's parochial.
That's right.
Don't mean it's right. We're a global people, and not only that, we deal with global issues. So it's not just a little narrow thing. So
see, Dr. Harris, this is what, you know, you don't know this, but of course, this is why the reorganization that we've been doing since January, but really since February, we've been meeting, you know, once a week with local leaders and nationally with national leaders around the country, and Mayor Baraka. And so people don't know this, but this is what's happening, right? So what we're saying now is that what's going to happen is we don't have a date yet, but the reorganization of the National Black Political Convention, what we're doing now is what we should have did the first time out, but we didn't. But now we're organizing with all of these local organizations around the country, over 200 of them, right? And what we're saying, and this is really the reason this level of organization is taking place is because what we said is that we did not want to overlook these local organization leaders, right? And not have them, because what Minister Farrakhan said in 1985, he said this. He said, we don't need the Black agenda that we're talking about. We don't need a contract or an agenda with America. We need a contract and agenda with Black people, right? And then he said, what we need to do is to sign a contract with each other so that we don't sell each other out. And that's exactly the conversation we've been having every other week around the country. And we're now talking about going around the country to meet with some of these people before they, almost like what Minister Farrakhan did with the Million Man March, before these people actually come to Newark. And what he said in 85 and 95, what he said is that he didn't give a damn about Republicans or Democrats. What he said is that Black people had to first make a contract or a covenant with each other so that we don't sell each other out, rather it be on college campuses or corporate America, or rather it be politics. He said Black people, and almost like Kwame Ture said, and Jonathan, I've heard you say this once before, but Kwame Ture said there needs to be some level of Black code, right? That we say to each other in a sense that will not allow us to sell each other out, whether it be on college campuses or whether it be in corporate America, wherever it might be. That level of unity has to happen. And that's the only thing we have never really tried. The minister said it in 2005. That level of being able to organize, because, if we don't organize, those people at Seton Hall is just the tip of the iceberg. That's going to continue to happen at all universities, especially when they're talking about removing education and this whole level of removing books. As the mayor said, oh, my father's book is too damn controversial to teach the young people. Are you serious?
Right. Now, here's the question I have, right? We know, like, Seton Hall really doesn't care about, right, Black studies. It's kind of like 2006 Kanye, right? Like, it says George Bush hates Black people. Seton Hall, they don't really care about Black studies, right? Historically, they've never really cared. You're right. Why is it so important that there be Black studies programs and Africana studies programs? And the second part of that is, are our students actually engaged? I talked to a professor at a different university actually this week, and talked to her about the controversy. And one of the things that was said is that African-American students don't engage in African-American studies programs. Part of the reason is that there's not a demand, even within the universities. And if that demand was higher, then it would be easier to leverage. And so
you can't use market principles and market values to judge whether Africana studies is good or not. We in the belly of the beast. We in the United States of America. We in a system that is based on white supremacy and white nationalism. Africana studies will never be popular. It will never be a popular major like psychology or criminal justice or anything like that, or biology for all those students who want to go to medical school. It's not. It will never be that. However, Africana studies is still a popular discipline because students take our classes. A lot of them may not major because they're being told not. And every single year I've been teaching, people have been saying, students are saying, well, I wanted to major in Africana studies, but I was told not to.
Wow.
Right? That happens all the time. And I guarantee you it happens at every university, right? But even despite that, students take the classes, right? When you see, when you get Greg Carr on here, he'll tell you, or maybe he won't because he's humble, but I'll tell you, his classes fill up quicker than anybody else's classes on the campus.
Yeah.
Right? They have a wait list for his classes. And other classes, other his colleagues at Howard University. Right?
And Dr. Harris, are we saying that these students are actually under advised when they're being advised or being advised?
Oh, no question. No question. Students at Seton Hall have been advised not to take Africana Studies classes and not to major in Africana Studies.
Wow.
And not to double major in Africana Studies, right? Because one of the things that we always say is double major. And one of the things, too, that's always been clear, Africana Studies scholars always say this, we preach and we push academic excellence in everything that we do. We preach excellence in everything that you do, right? Wow. and people have to remember that. So we not no poo but discipline. We serious, and we want to produce serious students and serious scholars and serious activists. That's what we about, right? So to go back to your other part of your question, Jonathan, about Africana Studies and why it's important. Africana Studies is an extension of the Black freedom struggle in this country. Okay, and even though the discipline itself was formed in the 1960s, the foundation for it was formed during the Haitian Revolution. It was formed in the hush harbors. It was formed when Black people were rebelling. It was formed in the Black convention movement of the 19th century. It was formed when we formed our own newspapers and journals in the 19th century, reading rooms where we would come and debate and read and study. And then we had these Black bibliophiles. That's when it was formed. And Du Bois, when he was at Atlanta University, when he used that as a workshop to study the Black condition, right? So this has always been with us. It's an extension of our freedom struggle. But again, our freedom struggle has never been just about us. Some folk will say it'd be to save the soul of America. The other folks say America doesn't have a soul. But we have to be clear that Africana Studies has always been about making the world better and not simply changing it to play the Black folk. But we start, of course, where we are and where people are the most oppressed.
That actually brings me to a point that I've had about education in general, right? Almost since the 80s, and definitely since the 2000s, right? There's been a push in education, both on the high school level and on the college level, to look at education as a business thing, right? Like, in other words, the reason why we educate kids is to make them better workers, is to make them better in the workforce, right?
Yeah.
So the purpose of education is to train people for corporate America, to be able to exist in corporate America, to be able to exist in the workforce. It seems to me that that's always been wrongheaded, and that the one purpose of education seems to be to create in individuals the ability to be good citizens, to exist within a democracy, to be able to critically read, critically write, so that we can question and seek changes or not changes based on evidence and substance, and to be able to engage in democratic debates and discussions. It seems that it seems that the push for the economic end of education undermines the point about Africana Studies, because it seems even like what you were saying is that its true justification is it actually makes us better citizens. Because when you understand African American studies, when you understand Africana Studies, you understand actual democracy, what it means, what it doesn't. You're forced to think about things critically, like the structure of society and what needs to change and what doesn't need to change, right? It seems like you're forced to deal with questions that are really the opposite of an education that just wants you to be a better corporate citizen.
Well, Africana Studies is helping us to be better human beings, and at that point of democracy, as problematic as American democracy is, Black people still have improved it, have expanded it. They can thank us for that. The United States can thank Black folks for a lot of things, not just culturally, but politically, socially, a lot of things in terms of our struggle. So we have to be clear about that. But one of my mentors, Professor Mac Jones, he's a political scientist. He was the first founding president of the National Conference of Black Political Scientists in 1969. He had an article that all Black political scientists really had to read back in the day. I don't know if people still had to read. I know they still read it at Clark-Atlanta University. But the article was titled The Responsibility of Black Political Scientists to the Black Community. And in it, he argued that Black political scientists, and by extension, Black people in general who are getting an education, have a responsibility not to be a cog in the wheel of their own oppression. And that our condition in this society requires us to be subversive. And that he wrote that article back in 1970. And I would argue that it's still the case. And there's a need for us to be, and we are still continually under assault, under attack globally, and it still requires us not to be a cog in the wheel of our own oppression. So if we're teaching our students and preparing them simply to be good employees in corporate America, we're doing our people a disservice, and we're doing a disservice to the legacy of our struggle in this country. Our goal should be to transform and to change, and it should not be to simply fit in. Y'all still there? Why y'all quiet?
So I was on mute.
I'm
I'm
actually making a note when you said transform, because that is most certainly not the goal of white folks in America, my brother.
And
no question.
Transform us.
No, listen. Listen. In any country, the education system that they have is to maintain and expand the status quo. Any country.
That's
any
right.
country, right? So the people who in any country, not just black folk, but the people in any country where they find themselves, if they are not benefiting from the status quo, then logically their thing should be, well, that ain't our purpose of our education.
Right.
Our purpose of our education is to dismantle that, right? And whether we dismantle it in a humane way, where we're trying to make it better for all people, or we try to dismantle it in an inhumane way, where we just want to be on top, everybody else on the bottom. We've never been about that. We've never been about, just black supremacy over everybody. We're trying to transform and show the world something. And, that's what people have to understand, man. That's why I love Africana Studies.
So really,
and Jonathan, let me just add to that, because that's important the way he just explained it. Because remember, DeSantis and Scott are running around the country saying that this whole idea of teaching young kids or even white kids Black history represents a level of indoctrination, right? When in fact, as my brother just stated, it's never. What we're talking about teaching our people to do is actually function in a racist society, right? And one of the issues we talk about all the time with the mayor is that Black folk have never really, been properly cured from 400 years of racism, and part of that is because we have never really understood from whence we come. And so, and the people who would educate us have never, and I'm talking about a lot of these white female teachers, that we talk about with Principal Capele. A lot of these white female teachers have never really been about making sure that Black folks understood their culture properly, and particularly young Black males. And that's part of the argument that we're making consistently about having Black males, one, for imagery, and then two, making sure that they understand what it is that they're teaching. And remember, Jonathan, that's the conversation we had with the mayor when he was saying down there at that school where those kids were having that trouble. He was saying, what type of education did these teachers have, and what books have they read, right, on our culture? And so therefore, how could you adequately teach young people about Black history if you yourself haven't taken any Black history courses, haven't taken any advanced courses, but yet you want to teach something surface as Dr. King, perhaps? But this is important because Dr. Harris, I don't know if you heard this, and Tim Scott repeated this. He said the reason the problem with teaching Black history to young kids, right, is because it is a level of indoctrination, but it is going to make white kids feel bad about themselves, right? Or bad about what their forebears did, what their great-great-grandparents did. And he don't think that Black people should be a part of making white children feel bad. And so that's why we shouldn't teach African history.
Well, what has American education done to us? How has it made us feel?
Right.
And I think really it goes back, and I think this goes back to really what you've been talking about, right? Like, if the purpose of education is to get, James Baldwin said the purpose of education is to teach us how to think about the world for ourselves, because unless we can, because that is the only way that society will change. I think that when you're dealing with African American studies or Africana studies, the assumption behind Africana studies and African American studies is that we are analyzing how we can change, that society does need to change, that right now society has demonstrated itself in a way that has been clearly unjust for a lot of people. I think that's really what people will always object to about Africana studies, because there's a lot of scholarship behind how to analyze oppression, deal with it, and look at movements of liberation. But you have to call it liberation. You have to understand what colonialism is, what white supremacy is, right? Like, in order to know Africana studies, it literally is a threat to almost any institution it's in. In that, if it wants to continue doing the same thing in the same way, then it may be less problematic. It may be more problematic. I know we reached toward the end of this segment, Dr. Harris, and I know we're definitely going to bring you back on. But what advice would you give to the kids who are protesting right now, and to the people who support them, and to the people who may be like, I am at sometimes where I'm like, does it really matter? They don't like it. They won't want it. Why go or engage in this fight to begin with?
Thank you for that question, and also thank you for having me on here. Again, I enjoyed the conversation. I'm learning from the students, and I'm not saying that just to say that. The way that they've organized has been something to behold. So I think that we should listen to them and talk to them about how they organize, how they galvanize the students, how they've gotten the community engaged, how they got about 2,000 signatures on change.org for their petition. We can learn from them. So I think that that's very important. I can't tell them anything in terms of what they should do. We can just learn from them. My advice to them is to continue, like I say to everybody, follow, have the courage to follow your conscience. And I'm not the first person to say that. Dr. King famously said something like that, and people all the time that famously said something like that. Our ancestors, said that and did that. Sometimes doing the right thing, it's painful and it costs, but at the end of the day, benefit.
I just want to add something to what he just said, Jonathan. And I was thinking about a clip someone sent me recently where Dick Gregory said, Black folks spend so much time, after Brown versus Board of Education, chasing integrating schools. And he said, what we really should have been focusing on is liberation, Jonathan, what you just said. He said, if we had liberated as Black folk, we could have created whatever schools we wanted to create. And we would have been able to solve the problems that we're currently having, right? With the level of as Dr. Carr says all the time, Black folk have such a low level of political knowledge. So therefore, we don't understand how to integrate politics into a Black way of thinking, right? And so you're right, Jonathan, when you talk about this liberation. I think that we were chasing education and integration, and now we're at this point where we're struggling to liberate ourselves, and white people are busy. The new young children of these old racist white folks from that time, their children, they're fighting because they damn sure don't want Black folk to liberate now, because we got way too many degrees and we're way too goddamn smart.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Harris. Who are you rocking with now in terms of hip hop?
Well, you know what? It's interesting. My daughter's a sophomore at Howard University, and I've been training her. I've been sending her every day some old school hip hop, so getting her up on. I say, because you're not going to graduate being an adult and not appreciate and understand old school hip hop.
That's
so
right.
we've been going through everybody, and she's loving it.
Right.
So.
All right, cool. Right. So I appreciate it. Just throw out one name for us.
Oh, My Part of Town, Philadelphia, Tough Crew. That song, My Part of Town. That's my anthem, man.
All right. Well, glad.
Hey, Dr. Harris, I'll be in Philadelphia on Friday because we're doing a street naming in Philadelphia for James Mtume.
Oh, on the what's today?
And
on the 12th?
Yeah, I'll send you the flyer.
I'm flying out Friday night to see my mother for Mother's Day for my mother-in-law.
We're doing it in the morning. We're doing it Friday morning.
Okay, I'll be there then. I'll be there.
I'll make sure you get the flyer.
Yeah, please send me the stuff.
All right, cool. Because remember, we have another segment coming up. And
thank you.
No, thank you, man. And we're gonna have you back because you're a regular on our show. So love you, miss you.
Get Pritchard on there. I see Pritchard is talking about it. Pritchard wrote a hellified letter challenging the administration. It's very important. Y'all need to get him on there, and y'all need to hear that letter.
Okay. Absolutely. Okay. Love Pritchard. All right, talk to you soon.
All right, peace. Man. Thank you.
All right, that is another segment of All Politics Are Local, America's number one political hip hop radio talk show, and we are now going to have our second guest on, and phenomenal organizer, phenomenal leader, Keesha, are you there? Phenomenal organizer. Well, I'm going to introduce her until she pops on. Keesha Eure is the director of Newark's Office of Violence Prevention. It is an innovative program that is born in understanding different ways to reduce violence. There was a recent article in The Nation magazine saying that the future of policing, the future of public safety is in Newark because of the innovative approach that has been taken by the citizens, by the government, right? By Ras Baraka, by the people who have been supporting a different way of understanding policing, public safety, and public health. And this really started when they were activists, protesters. I remember talking to Bashir Akinyele and actually even on our show, and with Ras Baraka and with Keesha Eure when they were activists, right? And talking about the CDC when they found that violence was the American Center for Disease Control found that violence functioned like a communicable disease. You could track it, right? That you could see it spread from neighborhood to neighborhood. That it functioned like a transferable disease. And so much work has been done based on that observation in what are the different ways to reduce violence in a way that is not just policing, right? Ed, you brought to my attention a video of this at the city council meeting. You were at the city council meeting, and can you tell us about that? What you heard and what a lot of people were talking about? Keesha, you're back. Yes. All right. Cool. So, Keesha, how are you? You look great.
Thank you so much. I'm doing well. I am just leaving the balloon release for our beloved shot and killed as a result of violence.
So yes, are you there? Are you there?
I'm here, and I'm just having a little bit of technical difficulties with my sound. Can you hear me okay?
We can hear you great. You sound great.
Loud and clear.
Okay.
All right. So this has been, so you are the director of the.
And by the way, Jonathan, before she started, I just want to add what when Keesha was actually an undergrad, what the mayor was talking about early on before he actually got elected, he was, to city council, he was talking about then, violence being a public health emergency, right? And nobody wanted to hear it then, right? And now people are buying in because it is actually a success. And that's due to the hard work of Keesha Eure and the work she's put in on the ground, not only as a leader, but really her community activism, on the ground before anybody knew who this young sister was. Right. Yeah, they're giving her accolades now, but they really don't know her past. They really don't know her journey, right? And so, you can give her that. And that's why every time she come on, I'm always going to say, I don't think they pay her enough money. I'm
Right.
I'm advocating for a bigger paycheck.
No, absolutely, right? Because the work that you do is groundbreaking, and it is needed, because it is looking at different ways to deal with violence. Now, this has been a tough week, and in terms of violence in the city of Newark, and that's where you're leaving right now, right?
Right. So yes, it has been a huge week this week, but it's been a tough couple weeks, where the violence has been increasing in our city, where we had multiple shootings. And so this week we had, on Wednesday, May 3rd, we had multiple people shot as a result of possibly domestic incident, but then separate incident happened as well. And many of us know that a young football player in our city, 8-year-old, was shot. Zamir is his name. And so we are just leaving a balloon release with the family. The mayor was here, council, and the football team, and our residents and people who wanted to honor his spirit and honor his life. So we just left the balloon release. And as we are talking about gun violence, we're talking about an increase in gun violence that's happening nationally. And how do we combat that? How do we look at that? How do we prevent, intervene, and treat violence in our community, beyond just having more police and more law enforcement? Is ultimately the conversation. How do we heal our communities? How do we understand that crime and violence creates trauma in our communities? And what do we do about it? And how do we approach it from a public health place?
That becomes even more, that becomes a profound question this week. And how do you start to look for, like, you've done a lot of work, you've done more work, you are a leader in the United States in the work that you do, right? I have incredible amounts of respect for the intensity and the work that you've done on this week. How do you look at solutions? Like, as in, how is it that things like this could be prevented based on the way that you're reading it? And is the issue not necessarily preventing the incident, but preventing its spread? How do you even process what went on in these last 2 weeks based on the work that you do?
As we looking at violence from a public health place, as we're looking at gun violence, and it's a huge issue, is beyond the shooter, it's beyond, it's the root cause. Like, what are the causes of why are people acting out in rage and having mental health issues and social issues and financial issues and all of those things that create the underlying issue of how we get here. And so last week, I released a strategic plan nationally to talk about what are the ways that we're going to be able to work on preventing violence in our community. And I talked a lot about my Office of Violence Prevention is a clearinghouse for community-based organizations to be able to get funding so that they can help us to do the work. And it's really building an ecosystem. And that's the way that we're doing this work. We're building an ecosystem, and the ecosystem consists of several different community-based organizations, institutions, and individuals who are coming together to say that we all may not do the same thing, but we agree on one thing, and that's we're going to decrease and stop violence in our communities as best as we can. And so you have organizations that are doing mental health services, mentoring, victim services, safe passage work, high-risk intervention work, where they're mediating situations in the community, problem solving, conflict resolution, trauma recovery services, and ultimately school-based educational services. We have a hospital-based violence intervention program. We're working at the institutions, the schools, the hospitals, communities, citywide. And so the key to all of it is having a relationship and working together, where we know that we can't do this work alone and law enforcement can't do it alone. And so we ultimately are creating a strategy where we are putting the resources into the hot spots where we know that most of the crime and violence is taking place. a small amount of the people are committing the most amount of violence. Everybody don't experience violence in our city the way that the South Ward and the West Ward experiences it. And so we're really concentrating resources into those areas. We are mobilizing the community, mobilizing and organizing the community so that they have input into public safety. You can't have public safety without the public. And so some people think that more law enforcement and more police equals more safety, and that's not true. And so the people know what's going on in the community, and the people who are closest to the problem are closest to the solution. So we go directly to the people who understand and know what's happening in the communities. And we're organizing and we're working on building trust and rebuilding trust in the community, because we have a resilient community and we know that they know what to do, but we ultimately are building and trying to do healing in our community. So that it's not always, again, law enforcement, punitive, arrest people, because those people come back out to a community. And what do we have for them when they come back out? Do we have jobs? Do we have mental health services? Do we have vocational training? Do we have housing? Because we know that housing is a national issue right now. People can't afford to pay rent or to buy houses in this country right now. So we have a huge homeless problem. We have a huge problem with people not having safe havens and safe places to go. And so we are ultimately doing this work from a public health place and really trying to put the resources back into the community, investing in the community. People have been doing this work for free for so long, and now we ultimately need to invest to where they get to fund their work. And so there's funding coming out nationally. There's funding coming out statewide and ultimately at a citywide level. I just released $16 million RFP, and we had several organizations that applied for the funding, over 50 organizations. And so really understanding
Stop.
that we need to do this work.
Hold on, because let me just wait. So you're saying that when you say ecosystem, right? You mean that there literally has to be grassroots movements of different organizations that are on the ground that are actually going to engage in alleviating some of these root causes. Like there'll be organizations that deal with mental health. There'll be organizations that deal with safe passage. There'll be organizations. So there are a series of different organizations that will do specifically what we think police do, but don't.
Right, because we don't always need the police to show up. Some of the issues that we have are quality of life issues. And so to Dr. Baruti Kafele's point of the ecosystem being school-based, a lot of it starts in the schools, right? And so we certainly need the schools are the first point because they see most of our children. The hospitals are first points because they see most of the people who come in re-injured. And so the hospitals are a part of this ecosystem. We have the institutions. Rutgers is a part of the ecosystem. They help us to collect data, and they help us to analyze the data to understand where are the things happening at. We had a strategy that said that most of the crime and violence was happening in front of bodega stores. And so we outlined where those bodega stores were. And then we went to the store owners and asked them, how can we help you to become a part of helping us make safe havens for these people there's fights in front of your stores, people being shot inside of the stores. And so we are helping the store owners.
What were some of the things that were done specifically on that? That was a big issue with bodega owners and people getting and violence in front of them. What were some of the specific solutions there?
So we asking the store owners that when these young people are here and you see that they are afraid or something is happening, to allow them to come into your store and call their parents so that parents can come and pick them up from your stores. And ultimately, we helping them get cameras inside their stores and outside their stores, and for them to be able to put posters and information in their windows so that we can have resources and people know the information, what to look for, where to go to get help. Because a lot of times people don't know that their help is out there. And so we're making the store owners accountable for being a business in the community, but for them to also create safe havens in their stores and not just watch these things happen right in front of their stores and outside of their stores. So we're offering them help and resources to get cameras and whatever else they need in order to make their businesses safe.
And it's interesting because that makes those businesses themselves safe, because there were shop owners who, like in recent years, were killed by gun violence that was going on outside. So this is something that helps keep them safe as well. And that's what you mean by ecosystem, right? Like, as in, you said there was $16 million that was just released for really trying to cement this ecosystem. How big a deal was that? Can you explain more about that?
Well, it's huge because nationally there are offices of violence prevention that exist, neighborhood services that exist. And so many of them are trying to figure out what to do and how to resource and fund their community organizations. And so we are using $16 million. Last year, I put out $1 million and just trying to see what the community organizations need. And we helped them build capacity. We did boot camps to help them learn how to write their applications to be able to get funding. Many of them are doing great work, but they don't have the capacity and the funding to be able to carry the work out. And so we're trying to help build, we're doing training and technical assistance for those organizations for them to be able to do the work they want to do. And those are in-home services. People have businesses or in-home support for mental health, emotional health, social skills. They're teaching life skills. They're doing trauma recovery work, arts and culture, school-based programs, after-school programs, knowledge of self programs, educational programs for our young people or adults who have aged out or underage, overcredited or undercredited. And we know due to COVID, many of them have dropped out of school and we don't know where they are. So we're trying to get them back into some educational programs. We're trying to allow them not to be the victim of violence or the perpetrators of violence. So we're trying to really invest into the community, whatever the young people and adults need: housing, food, clothing, shelter, transportation, basic needs, birth certificates, social security cards, quality of life issues.
I was going to say, like, what you're describing is amazing, because it's like you are literally funding a lot of small nonprofits that are community-based, as in come from the community. I know one of the controversies that was talked about by the mayor, and I believe by you as well, is that there are a lot of nonprofits in Newark. They don't necessarily serve the purpose that they're supposed to serve, right? But what you're saying is that when it comes to this work that's really important, there are a lot of people on the ground who are doing the work, but never was able to access that nonprofit cottage industry that is in a lot of urban areas, right? We've got a lot of nonprofits where people work in those nonprofits and they leave and go home in suburbs. And they come back here. They don't even look like us, but they make a lot of money off of nonprofits to deal, quote, with poverty and those issues. Are you suggesting that one of the ways in which the Office of Violence Prevention is creating an actual ecosystem, and the reason why you're calling it an ecosystem, is because the money needs to go to people who live here who can solve those problems?
Absolutely, it needs to go to people who can solve those problems. And for so long, those people have been underinvested in. We can go back to, when the 67 rebellion took place. And we are ultimately in the police precinct on 17th Avenue where it happened at. And so really being able to transform a place that was once a place where people were being brutalized and harmed to a place where people can just walk in and get some help. And so during the 67 rebellion, a lot of our buildings in our community was torn down, burned down, vandalized, and never invested back into, right? So our business owners are now being invested in or being able to get some funding. Our community organizations trying to figure out how to fund their after-school programs, their summer programs, their basketball programs. Sports is ultimately a way of saving our children's lives, right? For many people, sports changed their lives. A life skills program, a mentoring program changed their lives. And so really being able to allow those people to have access to funding. And if they can't get it from a city and locally, we are building capacity to teach them how to get funding on the state and the federal level. There's several millions of dollars now being dumped into community-based violence intervention programs and work. And so those people who are invested should be able to get funding to do the work. This is a lot of work. It's hard to be at the hospital, at the scenes where parents and families are losing people to violence, or helping them rebuild their lives after they've been victimized, right? That healing work, the grief support, mental health services, because the anniversaries don't go away, the birthdays don't go away, the balloon releases don't stop, the candlelight vigils don't stop, right? And so really being able to help give our community some support. They deserve to be able to heal. They deserve support. They deserve funding. They deserve to be resourced. They deserve to be invested in.
Yep. You know, Jonathan, what you hear Keesha actually saying is what we've known on the ground for a very long time, right? We've known that the people that need to be financed and the people that could help us are the very people that she's talking about. I had, and Keesha, you know this, I went over to a meeting that Until Freedom had organized, and they had all of the violence interrupters. It was amazing, right? Because to hear these people, just like, you know, I'm from Newark, so I know, you know, the anti-violence movement. I know the work that the Anti-Violence Coalition has done. I've seen that. So for me to see all of these people in New York come together and hear them express what they've been able to do, and then hear Tamika Mallory say that what you just said a moment ago, she said her function now in her mind is not so much to be on the ground, but it is to help make sure that these people know how to get funding, right? In order to be able to do the work that they're doing, because they are actually the ones who are qualified more so than the police to do the work that is being done, right? And that is why people are coming to Newark, because they're actually looking at and celebrating, right? How can they duplicate what we're doing in the city of Newark under your leadership? I think that's because they have always tried policing. That's the only thing white folk know. White folk only know policing. What they don't know is the level of love and commitment that those very people who are on the ground, who can actually save the lives, like you've already done in a number of cases, Keesha, that people would be surprised when you begin to tell them how you intervened in saving people's lives. And I think that is what we really need to get to from our perspective, and making sure that when people take a look at the city of Newark and they take a look at what's really happening here, what's really happening is you've got a group of people for the very first time who are doing the work that they've been doing for free, but are now able to say, you know what, I can wake up in the morning, I can take care of my family, but I can also do the work called love. Because remember, you can't serve people if you don't love them. And most of these people, and that brings us to the point, Keesha, where, I sent something to Jonathan this week. I had, and you probably heard about this already. I had, somebody sent me a clip of the council meeting, and I was looking at this little young girl who was crying, and it broke my heart when she was saying, how the police kicked in her door and what they had done to her family, tied them up. And in my mind, it immediately said to me, well, where's Keesha at? Because it would seem to me that that's who needs to be on the scene right now. Before they start doing anything else, somebody should have said, hold on a second, everybody's contained. Let's make sure we call Keesha, because there's a child here. And I heard the man at press conference this week, he said there's nothing more precious than our children. Right? And that in my mind is the work I see being done.
And Keesha, to speak directly to that, you mentioned a lot of programs. I wanted to talk about the interrupters, and in the case that Ed's talking about, the safe surrender, right? Like, because I don't think a lot of people, like when you mention programs, often there are a lot of them. There are a lot of people doing a lot of good work. But every time we come on the show, I'm like, highlight this, right? Talk about it. Because people don't understand why it's important. So Ed's talking about this little girl who traumatized by the, a warrant being executed, and an arrest warrant being dealt with. What is safe surrender? How does it deal with situations like that?
So as we're talking about different, alternatives to traditional policing, where we ultimately get to do a safe surrender. So I have social workers that work for me. So we have social workers, we have outreach workers, we have victim advocates, and our social workers are there to be able to help people to be able to reduce anxiety and harm, because we know that there's been a lack of trust in our communities around law enforcement. Yep. And that's a national issue that we've had. We had a consent decree before, right? And so the social workers, we have social workers in each of the police precincts. And on the wall, it says a social worker available upon request in each precinct. And with that, it gives people an option to be able to have someone else that they can speak to and talk to. If they want to file a complaint and different things, then we help them to do that. And so with the Safe Surrender program that we have, it's community-based, right? It's community-led. It's not law enforcement-led, where we're trying to reduce harm and trauma that people have, because we know that when the police come and they knock at the door or they kick in the doors in to serve a warrant or to do a raid or whatever it is that they're doing, that everyone becomes a casualty. And that's not fair. Right. And so if our young people, our grandmothers, our mothers have to be subjected to that, where they're being put in handcuffs or the straps or whatever it is, I just think that there's a better way to be able to do that. And so I've surrendered people who had warrants, and it was their choice. And I helped them to be able to go in, and we use community-based organizations to do it, or some of our faith-based organizations, churches, mosques, are a part of this strategy, where we call them and to say, hey, we have a person, they want to surrender themselves. Can you meet us there at 3:00 or whatever time we can meet to do the surrender? And it is from my office all the way through to the end, led where the police are taking instruction from my office, and we work together. And because there's some mutual respect now there and access to power, if you will, then they're on my watch, they're on my command, on my instruction. And so they are not just taking the lead, being aggressive, and just arresting a person. It's done with some dignity and with some respect, because we understand that people make choices and things happen, but they also get to make a choice to say, I'm going to surrender myself, and we get to walk them through the process. And then they get to talk to their loved ones and their family members while that's happening. And when they're ready to go, then we get to say, we do an assessment, and we assess their mental health, because many of them are afraid and scared. Some of them have been on substances and don't even remember that they did something. And so we're having a conversation with them so that it doesn't cause more harm. There's no reason. Some people, and I understand policing, and we don't get in the way of them being able to do their arrest, but some other people get to come in, have a conversation, don't have to be put in straps, don't have to kick the doors in, don't have to scare everybody, because that's not warranted for everybody. So the 8-year-old little girl who was afraid, that's not warranted. So there should be a way that we know who's in the house ahead of time. We get to talk to some folks ahead of time versus just making everybody casualties when we're serving arrest warrants.
Yeah, because Jonathan, you looked at what I sent you. That little girl is traumatized, man. You know what I mean? And whether her brother was innocent or guilty, right? She will now have to pay the price of what those cops did. Had they reached out to Keisha's office first, or when that happened, Keisha would have been able to organize that in such a way right? That little girl would have been protected in that house. And that didn't happen. And that is why the work that is being done, particularly out of Keisha's office, is so goddamn vitally necessary for our people, man, to at least be treated like human beings. Remember, we got white kids who are killing multiple people, being taken to McDonald's for a goddamn burger, man, right? And are not being treated like that. And so this is why in our city, right, this program under the leadership of our brother Mayor Baraka is so important to our people, so that our people, when we, get an opportunity to correct the wrongs that they made in their life, but also get an opportunity to get help, right?
Right.
We've never been given that. And that's what Keisha represents. She represents the helpline, right? People being able to be given that opportunity. And when she's talking about the mental illness, remember, Jonathan, for us, man, when you don't know where your next meal is going to come from, and you running from the law, and you got issues with your baby mama, I mean, you confused, man. How in the hell can you have a conversation with anybody, because nobody's coming and talking about trying to help you? But now we've got an office of violence intervention that can do that. And that is why, this office has to be the first point of contact for our people. It's just got to be, man.
The question I was going to ask you, Keisha, for the Safe Surrender program, you're telling me that, like, if the police, they're going to execute a warrant, they could literally let you know, like your office know, look, this is the person we're going to arrest. And you could have your community contacts literally contact that person, and they would more often than not come in. Like, why wouldn't they just run or hide, or why wouldn't that make the situation more dangerous?
So we have people who are surrenderable, if that's the word, right? And then we have some that are not, right? Some of them are not going to just willingly, turn themselves in. Some of them are not, and they're armed, they're dangerous, or depends on the type of crime or the nature of the crime. But I have surrendered some people who have shot people allegedly, because we don't know, right? They are innocent until proven guilty, right? Who are involved in shootings, sexual assaults, domestic violence incidents, different things. And so we owe it to people to be able to make a choice, right? We owe it to people to be able to not become casualties. And a lot of times, if it's a violent crime, then sometimes they're unsafe. So it's important to get them off of the streets, because they're not safe in the streets, right? And so it becomes a safety issue for everyone. So we're trying to keep people safe. We're trying to have people have dignity and respect. We're trying to have people not be traumatized. I've worked in the field of social work now for over 15, 20 years. And I worked at an agency one day, and I was doing a home visit, and the police came in and they put me in the straps as well. And I was a worker.
Hold on.
I was a staff member. Yes.
Oh.
When they were serving a warrant.
Wait, let's back this up. You were a worker, right? Like this is a long time ago when you were a social worker, young social worker.
Right.
You went into a house, they went to execute a warrant, and they put you in straps?
Right. I was there doing just a home visit, and I just happened to be there while they was executing a warrant. And then they had to call my supervisor to verify that I was a worker or a staff member for the agency. But they ultimately told me that that's the protocol, right? Everybody has to be secured. Everybody has to be put in straps until they clear the scene. And so I just think that there has to be another way to be able to do that. And I understand for their safety, they're doing what they're doing. But on the other end, you are humiliating people, you're scaring people. And if you just ask some questions, if you just talk to people first versus, doing the protocol, I just think that there's just some things that need to change. So I've been on the other side of that in terms of being a person being put in straps while they execute a warrant for someone in a working capacity. Right. And I've seen it, and I've been pushing back on it with the prosecutor's office, with the Newark police, with other law enforcement entities around that practice. And so I think that it depends on what it is that the search warrant is for. And then we talk about before those no knock warrants, right? Where they don't knock and they're just going in to get people. But we know in our communities,
like that
I'm
was
sorry.
what happened. That was like what happened with Brown and Taylor. And,
Right.
Right.
And we know in our communities that, you know, we ultimately are always on edge for the cops or the robbers, right? And so people are trying to keep themselves safe. People are on defense all the time. People are in survival mode. And I just think that if we have a better way of approaching some of these things, then we can mitigate some of the harm that we cause that's long lasting. The effects are long lasting. And so we really need to be able to help our young people, our 8-year-olds, our grandmothers, and people who don't have anything to do with when they're executing a warrant, being in harm's way. So there has to be an alternative. There has to be a better way. We do a safe surrender for people who want to come in, or the family members will call and say, hey, there's a warrant for my uncle, my cousin, my son, my granddaughter, or whoever it is, or the people themselves know that there's warrants for them. And so we work with some of our community partners as well, some of our local street folks who, you know, sometimes have people that they want to, you know, surrender or bring in. And we do it in a way that is led by us, led by the community, where we take the lead on it and we make sure that the person is safe from start to finish. And it's done with dignity, it's done with respect, it's done with humanity. They get to kiss their babies before they are, you know, taken away. The police talk to them. They read them their rights. They give them some options and alternatives. They allow them to, you know, write their phone numbers down. And if we're in a house of worship, they get to have prayer before they're taken away. And the family gets to see them off and know that they were safe and they were untouched when they left. Right. And so it has to be about safety. It has to be about protecting people's rights. It has to be about not causing harm, more harm on top of harm, or more trauma on top of trauma. The person is already afraid and scared. And there's alternatives to being able to surrender people without it having to be so aggressive, where we don't traumatize our young people. And when we do the safe surrender, the children are not present when we do it. We ask the parents to take the children away during that time, and they're not put in handcuffs publicly.
So you're literally talking about a situation that recognizes everybody's dignity,
right?
The dignity of the family, the dignity of the perpetrator, the dignity of not victimizing more people based on more trauma, right?
Right.
Like it seems like that whole it seems like if people actually have a choice, that because people often don't surrender because they're scared of just getting beaten by the police. They don't know how they're going to be treated when they get in there. Like very few people will walk in by themselves to a police precinct if you have a warrant, right? Because you don't know how you're going to be treated. There's not an incentive to surrender if you do not know how you're going to be treated when that happens. The other part that, just for clarification, when people get warrants, they already know it, right? Like, in other words, they know they have warrants out.
Yes, most times they do, because by the time they find out, a lot of times the police have gone to several places looking for them already. And so they'll know that, you know, they're looking for them, or that they have a warrant. Or if they don't know, then we can help them to check and confirm if the warrant is active or not.
And in some cases, Jonathan, you don't know. You know, you can have, you know, if you miss the court date and you forget that you had a court date, sometimes you can get issued, you know, a warrant for not showing up in court. And now all of a sudden, you know, because remember, sometimes you have real emergencies where, you know, you got other things going on in your life and you miss your court date, but you didn't know that there was a warrant that was issued for your arrest, and you just don't follow up on it. So now you got a warrant out there for you. I can tell you, I actually had a warrant out from, I don't know if you remember, Jonathan, I had a warrant out for my arrest for a parking ticket in the city of Newark, you know, maybe 20 some odd years ago.
Wow.
And I went to the police department, you know, right there at City Hall to find out about the ticket. This is real life. This actually happened. I went there to find out about the ticket. I'm sitting there talking to the detective. He comes and put handcuffs on me.
Right.
And he told me, he said, did you know there was a warrant out for you? I went through the whole process. They took me down in the basement, locked me up, the whole thing. I was down there for a number of hours, had to post bail, right?
Over a traffic ticket.
Over a parking ticket. It was a parking ticket. I didn't even know about the parking ticket, right? So sometimes that does happen, right?
Right.
But think about it, John. For me, if that had happened to a young woman who, let's say, have never been through that kind of stuff and were not prepared for that, how traumatizing that could be. Because even for me, I'm down there and I'm down there with real criminals. People have actually committed crimes, right? And I'm in the basement with these people. And everybody know in the city of Newark, the basement down in that particular jail right there is very famous, right? But that could happen. This is why this work is so important, and some of the comments people are making, because in our community, people want the kind of services, right, to get our lives together that this particular organization offers to our people. We've never been given this level of dignity to be able to surrender ourselves and get our lives together. The other part of it is that we've never known where to go get help at, Jonathan, right? I mean, we just, imagine somebody saying, listen, man, I'm gonna help you get that bad part of your life straight. You figure out how do we get that straight for you. But hey, man, when you come out, here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna figure out a way to get you a job, get your high school diploma, man, get you some training, get you back in the game, right? And that's another thing, Keesha. We're gonna have to start talking about some of the successes, right?
Right.
We're gonna start showing these people who have gone through this and who are successful because of the work that you all have done, and even the lives that you all have saved, right? We've got to show these people, right, that not only should this be duplicated, and I know that other people around the country, the mayors have come here and looked at what y'all are doing, but what we've got to say to these very white police chiefs, listen, man, the days of you terrorizing our people have got to come to an end, and we've got to, as the mayor said, we've got to organize by joining organizations and organizing to be able to stop that. But I think that if we can continue to show this work and put as much, because even when you talk about it, Keesha, I feel it. When you talk about being able to help people, to talk to people, walk people through the process, because that process, when you go through it, is very scary. Most people are mean, right? They mistreat you in that process. They talk to you very, very demeaningly in that process. But if you give people the dignity to be able to do what you just laid out, more of our people would say, man, I just want to get this stuff behind me, right?
I was going to ask you about how the office, because you're public health, right? And you work with public safety, which is policing. I know that Patterson also has a similar setup. They have the Patterson Healing Collective, which deals with public health, and the police deal with public safety. I would, just from an outside observing perspective, based on what happened with the young anti-violence worker who was murdered, who was killed, right, by the police. It seemed like they worked together, but they didn't have a good relationship. From what I hear, the people who were involved in anti-violence were trying to intervene on the behalf of a worker who was going through a mental health crisis, and the police, who they ostensibly should have a great relationship, did not let them intervene to save his life, and they ended up killing someone who was a public health worker who worked to, decrease violence within the very city that these police officers worked. What are the challenges with public safety and public health working with each other? I know that different cities have very different relationships, and I brought Patterson up, but what are the challenges in dealing with public safety, especially in light of the whole national conversation of defund the police, the national conversation with police unions. There's like a national conversation with policing. We see what happened in Patterson was, from an outside perspective, pretty horrible, right? We're pretty horrible. What are the challenges of dealing with an innovative program like yours within the context of Newark and public safety?
I would say that the number one thing is politics, right? And so where do these programs lie? Where do they sit? And so we didn't always have an easy road in terms of the city of Newark. So as we declared violence a public health issue, at first I was working under the health department and building it under the health department where it really should lie and where it really should sit around mental health and emotional health and services. But if we are reallocating a part of and repurposing a part of the police department's budget, then people say, well, why don't it just sit under public safety, right? And so the truth is that you have to have the relationship. You have to have the relationship with your ultimately your health departments and your public safety departments and city government. And so that's really the key to making all of it work. And so Mayor Baraka, understands and cleared the path and ultimately said we all have to work together. And so it doesn't work if it's one or the other. It has to be all three. And during the time when I was building the office, Dr. Wade was here, Brian O'Hara was here, and I had excellent relationship with these directors and leaders, and they helped me to build the workout from that perspective. And so with the Patterson Healing Collective with Najee Seabrooks, who was shot and killed, by the police there, they were there as workers. And so it has to be about mutual trust and respect. Do they trust that we can do this work? Do they see us as valuable partners? Do they see us as credible messengers, as credible and credentialed? And so when they have a crisis intervention team on site, do they see you as a crisis interventionalist, as a first responder? And that's a real place. And so ultimately how they see you, how they place you, is ultimately how they treat you. And so that treatment has to be seen as a place that we are valuable. We are valuable in the community. We're valuable to the people. And some people will say, no, call the police. We need more police. But then we also need more mental health people, social workers, people who can do problem solving, people who can do conflict resolution, people who can just de-escalate a situation. And we're communal people, and in our communities we have to know you. And so the minute that they see certain people show up, they're okay, they'll calm down, they'll do whatever you need them to do. And so we know that the law enforcement EMS is very scary to people who have mental health issues, because they have issues around, I don't want to go to the hospital, I don't want to go to jail, I don't want to be locked away, I don't want to be locked up. And so it escalates a situation. And so if you just let their family members talk to them, if you just let the mother talk to her son while he's in crisis, he's not going to do anything to his mother. Like, let the people that he like and love, they listen to, let them be a part of your response, a part of your intervention. Don't push them away and move them away. And I know that law enforcement feel like they have to protect everything and everyone, and they take over the scene. But there has to be some shared responsibility, and they have to see us as a partner in the work to say, hey, I got it, let me do it. And so there was an officer that we have trauma to trust with in the community, because we train law enforcement on trauma. And there was a person who had a mental health episode. And the officer said, I was so glad that somebody from the North Community Street Team was there. I'm so glad that someone from the Anti-Violence Coalition people was there, because I didn't know what to do. And so once the person came back too, they said, oh, I'm so glad that you was in that trauma to trust class, because you probably would have shot me not knowing what to do. And so when you have law enforcement community in the same rooms together, and they speak the same language, they have the same training, they are engaged and they understand each other's work, you can go to a call, and if it's a suicide call, I can say, let me go in first, I got it. And I just need you to stand by and bring the person out. We're going to put them in the ambulance and we're going to get them to the hospital. And you trust that I can do it. as a clinician, as a person in the community, as a credible messenger, as a resident, as a family member, but I understand that there's safety precautions, but we just have to be involved in it. You can't take over the scene, and then the people who are there that could have helped save Najee Seabrook's life was right there, and they feel helpless and hopeless that they weren't able to help save his life. And so we have to share this work. We have to share and know who's better suited to be able to do certain things. And trust has to be there. And so politics and trust is at the root of all of where these offices sit, where the funding comes from, how it's respected, how it's looked at. And so the mayor does an amazing job of saying the Office of Violence Prevention, the community-based organizations, right, have to work with law enforcement, meet with us, talk to us. We're in meetings together. We're sharing information in terms of, hey, this is happening over there. Put this over here, and being able to come up with strategies together. Like, it has to be shared. It has to be a shared effort. It can't work one or the other. And people have to see the value in community and community-based public safety. And we're not there yet, right? People still want to see more police officers. And so they still need to, we have to get more buy-in from the community that community strategies work. The people who are in the community know what's going on. Law enforcement come after things happen. But what do we do before?
Right.
What can we do before law enforcement has to intervene?
And Jonathan, the thing about Brother Najee, may God be pleased with him, this brother was having a mental health crisis.
Right.
Which signifies to me it was not a dangerous police matter, right? Says to me that you know, people like Keesha should have been on the scene.
Well,
I
think that
said that they were there, but were not allowed to come in and communicate, and particularly he was one of their own.
Right.
And Keesha, with respect for you and the work you do, and respect for the Patterson Healing Collective and Liz Chowdhury and the work that they do, they go into situations that are dangerous unarmed, armed only with their reputation, their words, and they live by that, right? I think the thing that I don't think people appreciate, whether it be the violence interrupters, whether the people who deal with like safe surrender, whether anyone who does the work in the hospitals, the work to talk to people who are violent, right? People who have killed people, right? Is that you engage with people who potentially are violent, who have warrants against them, unarmed. There's armed with your reputation and your words. And I think I think if more people appreciated that, I think the entire endeavor of what you're doing would be more powerful, because you're like, look, the person who ended up like what happened with Najee Seabrooks, and when I first heard the story about a violence prevention worker being killed, at first I thought he was killed by people he was trying to serve. I didn't imagine he was killed by police officers who he was actually protecting, right? In terms of that situation, because you make it easier for police officers. The work you do has demonstrably been better for that. So much respect for all you do with that. I know we're coming to the end of this, and we have DJ Rhino here, but we'll let you, Keesha, the parting words for us.
Thank you so much for having me on once again. It's so much to be said and so much work to do. This work, it didn't just start overnight. We've been laying the groundwork for 10, 15 years, some people longer than that. And I think that if we would have known now what we known then, what we know now, we would be so much further along. So we're really trying to pull this work together. We're trying to professionalize the work. We're trying to make sure there's enough funding to sustain the work. We're trying to be able to build a culture that says that we're needed and we're necessary in the community, because people depend on us and people love us and people need us to be able to have an alternative and a different approach to public safety. We get to be the community-based public safety side, and we get to have and do that with dignity, respect, and love. And a lot of people say, oh, you do this work from a place of love. Yeah, that's the only place you can do it from. When you love your people, you love the community, you love the mission, and you know the assignment, then you show that every time you show up for people at their doorsteps, at the hospitals. And sometimes people just need food, clothing, shelter, somebody to just listen to them, somebody to tell them where to go, somebody to take them there, right? And so we really need to understand that this work is community-based. This work is based on really knowing the harm that's happened in our communities for 10, 20, 30 years. We're talking 60s, 70s, and we're talking hundreds of years. Let's just talk about the generational trauma that we've experienced. Let's talk about the historical trauma that we've experienced in this country for years, right? And so it trickles down, and this is just the microcosm of the work that needs to be done. But this work is happening nationally. There's several cities that have offices of violence preventions. We're building ours very different and innovative and creative based on the needs of our city. We know that we have a city that's rooted in spirit and activism. And even the people that don't agree with us, right? Still the people out there helping people, even when you don't have same ideology. But we know that people need to be cared for, nurtured. And when they're harmed, we get to support them in their harm. When they have trauma, we get to help them with recovery. And recovery may take a long time. We get to go to court with them. We get to go to different places to help them to mitigate their situations. Law enforcement is not doing that. That's not their job. But it is our job to be able to help people to heal from their trauma, traumatic experiences. The community is harmed when we lose people to violence, when they are running from bullets or domestic violence and sexual violence that we don't even talk about. Right. And so there has to be alternatives. There has to be a different way, and we have to invest in it. And so my office is the clearinghouse to help us to invest in it, to professionalize it, to formalize it, to organize it, to mobilize it. And while we're not perfect, we're certainly trying daily to be able to help the people in the community the best way that we can, and to model this nationally for other cities to know that it's possible to be able to do as we build this ecosystem.
You know, Jonathan, what Keesha just said, anybody who knows the Bible says the most dominant thing of all is love, right? The most dominant, you could have everything else. The Bible says you could speak in tongues, you'd have all the money in the world, but the Bible says the most prominent thing is love. And what Black people have never had, right, is love. Right? We've never had that from each other. We've never had that from our own families, and that's why when she show up and she's talking about offering them love, right, they're willing to follow that. And I want to call Keesha Miss Love tonight, and I appreciate you, Queen.
And thank you so much. We're going to have you back soon. Thank you for the contacts from earlier. We're trying to work on a really good presentation that I think is going to happen. That I think will be a conversation that everyone should really see. So thank you, Keesha, for that as well. We have been running over time so much. I'm not even going to ask the question. Just Keesha, call out the hip hop artist that you listen to. Okay, she must have already dropped off. All right, but DJ Rhino, are you there?
I'm still here, DJ Rhino. My answer is going to always be Tupac Shakur. It's never going to change.
Okay.
Always, always, always.
Well, thank you so much, and love you much.
Thank you,
and thank you. Hey, Rhino. So how are you, man?
Peace. Y'all can hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, what's going on, brothers?
Not much, man. Having some good conversations. One last
I know that's a big piece to follow, my brother. But you,
show you, man. Coming on last. Well, I mean, it's not last today because I know we got the congressman coming on. But usually I come on at 8:30. Tell you, coming on last after the guest that we have, man, is really difficult.
I know
because it gets so heavy, man. I don't even want to interrupt, the conversation. You don't want to stop anything, for anything light like this. But man, yeah, it gets heavy sometimes, man. It's hard to follow sometimes, man. But first, before I even get into it, since we on heavy subjects, man, let me just say rest in peace, Jordan Neely. That was the young brother who lost his life on the subway train in New York City.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Jumped by three white thugs. Man.
Yeah. One of them was 24 years old. He was an ex-Marine. I guess he felt he wanted to use something that he learned on somebody. So so you know, the footage went viral. Everybody saw what went down. Right now, he's being looked at. He's being looked for. They apprehended him before, but they let him go. But yeah, they need to pull this dude back. And
man. He committed a crime.
Yeah. And the two gentlemen that were with him. I don't want to call them gentlemen.
It's now been ruled a homicide.
Yeah.
So therefore, they all should be arrested now and processed.
Yeah, because the other two was holding them down.
That's right. They all have. Yeah.
So rest in peace and justice for Jordan Neely. He was just a young brother, man, just, you know, trying to make money, trying to get food. You know, he used to do Michael Jackson impersonations on the subway train. And you know, and I guess this day, I mean, you know, that's the other thing too. We don't really have the footage that took place before that, but you know, from what was said, that, you know, I guess this was one of those days where he didn't feel like performing. He got to a point where he was just kind of fed up, and he was hungry, he was he was frustrated, and he needed some food, and he was like, you know, saying some things. And I guess some people felt scared, felt threatened or whatever. And, you know, he didn't have to die though. You know what I'm saying? Even apprehending him like that, you know what I'm saying? You didn't have to kill him. You know what I mean? He didn't, you know what I'm saying? So it definitely went way too far. Right. And you know, but it got caught on camera, man, and you know, he's being looked for.
But that's the whole thing, right? Like, he was homeless. He didn't, like, it was black and homeless, right? Mm-hmm. And so they didn't feel he had any value. Like, he didn't stop. Like once, I mean, you choke somebody out, there's a certain point where they're clearly defenseless.
Right.
He didn't give care because he wasn't human.
Rest in peace, Eric Gardner.
Right. At a certain point, right? Clearly they're helpless, but they don't care because they don't see him as human.
Right. Yeah. So.
But in this case, what Rhino is saying, remember, all he was doing, John, was spewing words, right? Spewing words. And some of the people they spoke to said that he didn't threaten anybody. He was just saying what he was going to do to himself. He didn't say what he was going to do to anybody else. And he was saying he was hungry. You're saying I'm hungry. I'm not saying you're hungry. I'm hungry. Right?
And in the end, it doesn't really matter when he you know, he's murdered, right? So that's one of those things that's horrible. Yeah. Hello. Hello, we can hear you.
Hi, how are you?
Mr. Payne.
Yes.
He's Jonathan. So he's on to be his nephew's guest tonight.
All right.
To get Mr. Payne on for the longest, and so he's on to give us his 90 years of wisdom, and not only one staying alive, but all the stuff that he's seen and how to keep young men, you know, alive in the 21st century.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, so that segment will start very shortly. We look forward to having you. We're gonna put you in the background just for a second, but then we're gonna bring you right back out. But we look forward, definitely look forward to, man. It's an honor. It's an honor.
Thanks.
So AI, what's up with that, man? AI and hip hop. AI replacing hip hop. There's no more hip hop. It's just AI.
They said
hip hop was dead anyway.
Man, we can't have that, man. Leave that in the pop world. Leave that. And that's the thing. That's the thing I don't understand is why every time because this is like the second or third time they've tried to, you know, introduce some type of AI technology into hip hop. Why hip hop? Why are they using hip hop as the guinea pig all the time? I didn't see them do this for Elvis. I didn't see them do this for Jerry Garcia. I didn't see them do this for John Lennon or Freddie Mercury or Frank Sinatra. Why they keep doing this? They did, you know, when the hologram thing first came out, they had Tupac and Biggie, Whitney Houston, Michael Jackson. Why are they doing this with us all the time? but I don't never see that go on with none of their greats. You know, Elvis lives. Okay, where's the hologram? You know what I'm saying? Where's the AI if Elvis lives? You know what I mean? Like, why is this always being pushed on black culture all the time? They always want to use black culture for as the guinea pig for this kind of stuff, man. And that's what upsets me. You know what I'm saying? You know, the last thing they did with I forgot the rapper's name. It was some AI rapper that they had FNK or FN something or whatever it was. Like, I'm like, come on, man. Like, leave our stuff alone. Do that with the pop world, because the pop world is anything goes. Anything goes in the pop world. You can have auto tune. You can have anime. You can do whatever you want to do in the pop world. You can do all of that stuff in the pop world. Leave that to the pop world. You know what I'm saying? Like, introduce that to the pop world first. You know what I'm saying? I know hip hop is the biggest thing. So in a sense, you know, they look at hip hop as the pop music, the popular music, but that's not for hip hop. That AI stuff is not for hip hop. It's really not. And I know I saw Timbaland. He did something with Biggie's voice. I heard it. It's not whack, but it's nothing special either. I didn't hear nothing special about it either. It was just okay.
And also, at a certain point, it's just disrespectful, right? Like, yeah. I think that, like, you know, doing Biggie without Biggie's permission, and
right,
that's obscene. When you have all these when you have all this intellectual property law, it seems like they could get actually sued pretty badly, and that would check a lot of this. Because the state would be like, nah, you can't do that. Like, if I can't sample beats, if I can't sample Bob James music without having to pay Bob James, how can I
take somebody's voice? Yeah.
Without having.
I already saw a clip of Biggie saying a Nas verse or something like that. They got Biggie's voice saying something that Nas said.
Right.
You know,
I don't know why that is. I don't know how that's not, you know, intellectual property infringement. And I think that a lot of this is going to be meted out.
I hope so.
Right. Like, as in, like, who got to pay? Right. Like, a lot of the Napster people, you know, the law caught up to them because it's like, you got to pay. There's that cash. There's that money. Right.
Yeah.
So,
and that's another thing. Speaking of money, you know, when I saw Timbaland messing with it, it made me think too.
Check your text. All right. Yes, Ryan, DJ.
Who, me?
No. I was like, Ed, check your text. But DJ Rhino.
Yeah. No. Yeah. You know, when I saw Timbaland playing around with it, I was thinking, like, you know, that's something that's going to take place too. Is that people who have the money to really mess around with something like that, they're going to play with it like a toy. You know what I'm saying? For us as consumers and listeners and fans, we take it a little bit more personal. But people who have money are just gonna take that and play around with it. They're gonna do all kinds of crazy stuff. You know what I mean?
All right, no, we appreciate that, DJ. We're gonna get ready to push on William Payne, but we're gonna revisit this conversation. We're gonna have some more people on and talk about the implications of that. And in a segment that you're going to host, I think we're going to get a property rights lawyer, someone who deals with intellectual property, to have a conversation about this as well with you and hip hop. Because I just don't, you know, my man just he apparently that singer didn't copy Marvin Gaye. I didn't hear it.
Ed Sheeran.
Yeah, I didn't hear it, man. I didn't hear it.
You didn't hear it?
I didn't hear it.
I heard it, man. Let me tell you, I heard it more in this than in the other one with Marvin Gaye versus Robin Thicke and T.I.
Oh, I heard it.
I heard it more in this because it's the same bass line, the same groove as Let's Get It On. Yep. It's the very same bass line and groove. There's no missing that part.
Maybe it's because Ed Sheeran's so white to me, where it's like I just didn't hear it. Like with Robin Thicke, I heard it because Robin Thicke is kind of cool, right? Like Robin Thicke is like, I'm like, I didn't.
With Robin Thicke, I really had to play them back to back, side by side, to really even hear what it was that they were talking about. Like that one was a little masky to me, man. But this one with Ed Sheeran, it was like, oh yeah. As soon as I played it, as soon as I heard the bass line, I was like, oh yeah, that's Let's Get It On. That's
so did I.
I heard it.
Yep.
Oh, so it's the bass line. The bass line.
Yeah, it's the bass line and the groove and all that. I mean, they got bridges and stuff that are different than Marvin's, but But that main groove, that bass line, that's Marvin all the way. That's Let's Get It On.
They know it. They know it, Rhino.
They knew it.
Yeah. All right.
They knew it.
Cool. So we're gonna do that, but stick around, Rhino, because join us for this next section as well.
All right.
All right. So Ed, we're bringing on. We're going to get ready to start the Payne Report. Welcome, William Payne.
Hi. How are you?
I'm very good and honored, seriously honored to have you on, man. You are a legend. You are one of the legends of running campaigns, political legend. Like you ran this part of Jersey and state politics for so long in terms of what you do. You are a legend. I've heard about you long before I met you as someone who knew what they were doing, knew how to get people elected, knew how to beat all expectations, was someone who was a political behind the scenes, someone who knew how to count numbers and who to win and all that other good stuff, man. So it's an honor to have you on today.
Thank you. I appreciate your comments, etc. I don't think I've done anything more than others should have done too. When you reach the age of being able to participate in government and start voting, etc., it's extremely important that we get that message out there. And unfortunately, what I've noticed over the years is that there are so many people that look like us, just simply do not bother to vote and things of that nature, but will say, well, they never do anything for us anyhow. And I've been trying to say over the years that if you do not participate, don't expect anything to be done by those people who are elected to office. Because if you don't help them get elected, and also if you do not use your vote to elect people who are interested in the things that we need, then don't expect anything from them. And too many people that I've met over the years simply say, well, I ain't gonna vote. But the thing that bothers me is that when you go to suburban areas, I've often said that the night before election, people around the dinner table up in up in some of the other areas of our state, they're talking about well, tomorrow, don't forget you're 18 or 20 years old now, and make sure that you use your vote. You make sure that you vote. But unfortunately, what we hear very often in the inner city are people saying, "Oh, I ain't gonna vote because they ain't gonna do nothing for me anyway, so I'm not gonna vote." And it's the thing that seems to go throughout many of the communities that we live in. And I ain't gonna vote for that. And as long as you do not vote, they will not do anything for you or us. You go into other communities and people say you make sure the first thing that you do is to make sure that you vote. And if in fact they don't, if we do that, and if they don't, meaning they who's running for office, they don't do anything for us, then you have an opportunity to get rid of them the next time around. But when I hear over and over again people saying, dang, they don't do anything, they ain't gonna do nothing, I ain't gonna vote for them, that's exactly what the enemy wants us to do, you see. And I've been trying to preach that story for a long time, ever since I was 21 years old, as a matter of fact. For those of you who are my age, we had to wait until we were 21 before we could vote, and then until they lowered it. But that's one of the things I preach, and my brother was a congressman, and so many people that I know. I don't want to get off on that. I've just been concerned about the fact that people don't seem to care or understand that if we do not participate, and people are not going to do anything for you, and we get what we deserve.
Now you have been a centerpiece in New Jersey politics since the 60s. How did you first get involved in politics? Like you were born and raised in Newark, New Jersey? That's correct. Yeah, born and raised in Newark, New Jersey, in the northern part of Newark, as a matter of fact. And we, when I turned 21, I went to vote. I was living in North Newark,
I went to vote, and when I went into the voting place and cast my vote, I looked around and noticed that there were no people. I was living in North Newark, and if you know the area at that time, there was Newark was kind of separated. Then the northern part of Newark, it was predominantly Italian. The western part was a predominantly Irish. The central part of Newark was predominantly African American. The east Newark was many people from Spain and places like that. So when I went to vote, and I came out of the polling place, and there were a lot of people sitting around at tables and taking down notes and things of that nature. And I looked around and I noted that I was the only African American in the room. So I asked people, I said, "Oh my goodness, what are you doing? How'd you get the job?" And people would tell me, "Well, that fellow standing over there was the one that picked me for the job. He's in charge of everything. He's a county leader." So I said, "Well, I'm not happy with the fact that there's not any African Americans at all running for office or even working back here." Anyway, I went to the guy who was the head of the organization up there in the North Ward, and I said, I note that there's none of my people, anybody that looks like me is voting here. And he told me, "I don't want any black people voting in here, and they're not going to do it as long as I'm the district leader." So
wow. What year was that?
That was, let me see, when was I turned 21 years of age? Let's see, if you're good at mathematics, what year was that? Let's see, 32, 42, 52, about 52, thereabouts. And let me see, 1932, 42, 52. Yeah. So anyway, I had just turned 21. You had to be 21 to vote. But in any event, the fellow told me that he didn't want any black people working here. And that was right in New Jersey, Newark. So I went home and told my brother, who was too young to vote, and told him, I said, "There's some guy up there by the name of whatever, Tony." He said he's not going to let any black people vote up here. And we're going to put a stop to that. And anyway, I ran for the district leader the next time around, and I won. So that's when I first got elected to running in public office.
Okay, so there's a part of this story that you definitely left out, right? You know what part of the story you left out? I know you left this part of the story. You're like, I turned 21. They're like, "No blacks allowed." And then you're like, "So I just ran and won." Yo, what? You missing something right now, right? There are a lot of people who get mad, but they don't win. What did you do to win? You in a racist district ran by a racist leader, you actually beat him, knocked him out.
Yes.
How'd you do that?
Let me just say this before Mr. Payne go on. You're listening to the Payne Report, of course, with our brother Congressman Donald M. Payne Jr. But he's running a little late tonight. This is his uncle, one of the legendary political minds in our city. He doesn't have honorable in front of his name, but it should be the honorable.
Right, like people are elected because of the stuff that he did. Like there are people who are the politicians, the people who count numbers and get people elected. We're just going to get a taste of that right now, because when he was 21, he ran into some racist person who was a district leader, and they're like, "No blacks allowed." And then he's like, "Well, I won." How did that happen?
And Mr. Payne don't know, we've been trying to get your nephew to get you on all year. It only took 5 months.
I'm sorry. I apologize. You could have called me directly.
So what happened? What happened? How'd you do that? 21.
Well, I got elected. Okay, and this fellow, let's say this Tony, the word went out. As I was raised in the North Ward of Newark. Okay, and when the word went out, that was people got the message, and so the word went out that Tony, who was the district leader of the North District, 12th District, North Ward rather, was beat by some black kid. Some black kid beat Tony in his own district. And some kid, I don't know who he is, but Tony lost. That there's a kid that named Bill Payne and whatever. And so the word did go out and I became the first African American district leader.
Okay, but you still didn't tell me how you did it. You took out an incumbent who was powerful and racist in a racist district, but you're like, "Nah, you done, son." What did you do? When he said that, what did you do to knock him out?
Well, what I did was I said, first I told my brother who was 19 and made him my campaign manager, even though he couldn't vote for me the next time around. But I found someone in the neighborhood, a woman whose husband was a police officer, I believe, African-American woman. And I asked her if she would run with me the next time around. I told her what had happened and that there was nobody up that looked like us in that district. So she asked her husband and he said, okay, fine. So she ran with me the next time and I went in the neighborhood. My grandfather, who was not really voting at the time, I went home and I told him, hey, Grandpa, I just voted and I'm now going to be a district leader up here. And it's time for us in this house and everybody on our street, which was Peabody Place, et cetera, to register to vote. How can we be living in this neighborhood and have 8 people working on the polling places and nobody that looks like us? And then when we go to vote, we're not treated right. So we had to put a stop to it. So that's what we did. I went through the neighborhood and people that had never voted before that. The next time around, I got elected the following year. And a guy came by the name of Leo Carlin, who was a politician, and he was running for mayor of the city of Newark. But what happened, Leo Carlin came by the next time the election came around, which was another year, and he introduced himself. He said, my name is Leo Carlin. I'm running for mayor. He said, I understand that you're the district leader here. He said, I want you to know that I got elected. I got elected. That's how I started in politics. I did exactly the same thing. And so the word spread with him. He got elected mayor. I was going to Rutgers University at the time. And he invited me to his private office. I would go down to his office. I would call his secretary and say, I'll tell Leo that Bill Payne is out here to see him. And she said, who are you? I said, just tell him Leo, Bill Payne. And every time I did, he was, of course, because he was telling me that that's the way he did it. And I began to spread the word with other people that we, in order to have any kind of influence in this city and elsewhere, is that we have to register to vote. So I went around the neighborhood and I was able to get people who had not voted before, were discouraged about voting, and they voted. So that's when we began to have African Americans in the political party up there in the North Ward and then elsewhere. So, and my brother, 2 years later, he was old enough, so he ran, and I stepped down, and he became a district leader and moved to the South Ward, and he became congressman from the South Ward, etc. But yeah, it was something. You see, people just took it for granted. I mean, people that look like me too often were discouraged from going to vote. A lot of the people had come up from the South over the years before that, and didn't bother to vote. And then when I got out there, people, the other community, that didn't look like they thought I was some crazy kid down there running against the organization, and we proved that you could win. And then ever since then, you might know that I've been involved with trying to see to it that we use that vote. I personally knew people. I don't want to take over the whole show, but I personally knew people that died because they voted. I knew.
Wait. So let's back that up, right?
But hold on a second, John.
No.
Hold on a second. But Mr. Payne just casually went over who his brother was. He said the next year my brother was old enough to vote. I'm sorry, what's your brother's name?
Donald Payne Jr.
Oh yeah, the great Donald Payne Sr.
Donald Milford. No, he's senior. His son Donald, who was there, that was junior. Right. Donald Jr. Donald Payne Jr. was my brother's son. Donald Payne Sr. was elected after. To go back quickly to the district, I got elected a district leader, and I served for a year or two. My brother then ran. He became a district leader and moved to the South Ward, and he became very active in the political thing. My brother, as you all know, was elected to the Congress, the first African American elected from the state of New Jersey to be a member of Congress. And so that's who he is. And then his son, after the years, when my brother passed away, his son, Donald Payne Jr., became the congressman to replace him. So as a matter of fact, when my brother was elected to the Congress, I was a member of the state legislature. My nephew Craig Stanley was a member also. So my brother was in Washington, and two of us were up this way, so we kind of decided that it's time to, do what we should do to try to turn things around. And so for 10 years, 10 years, I think I served in the legislature. But my brother was in Congress. I was in Trenton, and I use a vote. I get angry. I get upset when I find that people simply don't take advantage of it. And people, it's crazy. It's asinine. And people, look, like I said, I know people. I knew people personally when during the time that I was elected district leader. I was 21 years old. I was also elected as the national chairman of the youth of the NAACP. I was the chairman of the youth of the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, and I was the chairman of that. And when I was in San Francisco at the convention of the NAACP, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. had been invited by someone to speak at the NAACP convention in San Francisco. And I was, as I said, I was the chairman of the youth at that time. And Dr. King had been invited there. Well, what happened was that the old heads in the NAACP, the older guys, they said that young preacher is not going to come and speak here at this convention. This is the NAACP convention, and we're not going to have him at this thing. He's a preacher, and he's not going to come here. Well, when I heard that, I said, here's a man. Yeah, Dr. King was only about at that time he was 26 years old, 27 years old, and he had been invited to come. He had just started to bust the situation down south, and he came out there, but they didn't want to let him speak because they're not going to let him speak there. Well, what happened, of course, is I tell you, I was just elected district leader in the North Ward of New Jersey, North New Jersey, and I wasn't going to let a bunch of guys to say that this young preacher was not going to be able to speak there. So I got everybody. I was the national chairman of the youth division. I got all the delegates, young people that were out there with. We had a meeting, and I said, these old guys, Thurgood Marshall included, we're not going to let this young preacher speak here.
Wow! I'm sorry. That was a surprise. I was surprised.
Oh, were you?
Hey,
Wow.
Mr. Payne, hold on for a second.
Yeah.
I want you to continue, but obviously we have to give the show back to the host. Welcome, Donald Payne Jr. Your uncle's doing a hell of a job. So your show, my brother, but we enthralled.
Can he finish that story though?
No, hold on. Let him finish that. Listen, it's the Payne Report. It doesn't matter which Payne you have.
Okay. All right. No, I mean, okay. So you're like the NAACP.
Yeah.
And Thurgood Marshall.
Yes.
Didn't want Dr. Martin Luther King to speak?
Yes, young preacher. He was only 26, 27 years old.
Remember now, John, you're thinking about the Dr. King. You know now. This was the 26-year-old kid they were looking at. He hadn't done all the things he had done. He was moving forward in the movement and getting a great following, which is why my uncle, was saying, no, we know this guy, he's going to be able to speak. But you don't take the context that Dr. King. He was like, half of those guys probably didn't even know who he was. So that's the context. That's the context of it. Go ahead, Uncle Bill.
They all knew who he was, but they were kind of envious, okay?
All
and
right.
Suddenly, from out of the South, comes this 26, 27-year-old man who's getting all of the knowledge,
Oh.
Yeah. And
so it was more jealousy. It was more jealousy than
exactly. He's not come here. No, he's not gonna come here and whatnot. So he has to speak this. So I got everybody together, and because we had about 100 young people that were delegates there. So I got them together and I said, these old heads, won't let this young preacher preach out here. And I said, we need to do something about that, but it's not going to happen. And Thurgood Marshall had said, boy, Thurgood Marshall told me as one of the committees, when I started to say something, he said, boy, just sit there. You know, youth should be seen and not heard. Well, he should have done that, because we had about 100 guys together, and we brought in women to get young people, and we had this meeting. A. Philip Randolph was also there, and A. Philip Randolph was going to be one of the speakers. But after we finished with
hold on for a second. Do y'all hear he's dropping names right now?
Yes, he dropped Thurgood Marshall.
He's dropping
Philip
names.
Randolph that he was just talking to.
Legends, like.
Well,
and he's rolling off. It's rolling off like it's water. Like
Thurgood Marshall told me to sit down, but I had something for him.
let me show you, if I can show you this little. Talking about Dr. King, if you look closely, Dr. King is here, and I don't know. Let me see, where is he on the screen? Can you see him at all?
Yeah, you see Dr. King.
Dr. King and Bill Payne over here
On the other side.
Right. Dr. King had just finished making his speech that they said he'd never make, okay? We made sure that he spoke there. Dr. King was there, and I escorted him. I introduced Dr. King to the convention. That was the very first time that he had an opportunity to speak to that convention. Wow. And I was the one that emceed that particular meeting with him, and then for A. Philip Randolph as well. A. Philip Randolph was also a speaker that day. In fact, there were 3 speakers. There was A. Philip Randolph, there was Dr. Martin Luther King, and Bill Payne, the national head of the youth. The three of us spoke there. Here's a picture there's Thurgood Marshall. Now that's the next day after we had our little thing. We brought Thurgood Marshall. He came outside for a cigarette. He's just got a cigarette in his hand, and so we had an opportunity. That's me with speakers. I was the chairman of the youth of the NAACP.
Hey, Uncle Bill, I never saw that picture before. You've been holding out.
Oh, well, I'm sorry for that.
But Mr. Payne,
yes.
hold on a second now. Let's tell people who the Thurgood Marshall was. I mean, we got Brown versus Board of Education. Young black kids can go to school. And yeah. He was the one who put together and fought the Supreme Court for this to happen. Yes. I mean, legendary.
He ended up on the Supreme Court.
I don't want to take up the whole thing, but I had the opportunity.
No, go ahead, Uncle Bill.
When I became the chairman of the youth division of the NAACP, there was a woman by the name Mrs. Williams, who lived in East Orange, and she was the advisor to the youth council of the youth council in the state of New Jersey, and I was a member there before I got to the national thing. And Mrs. Madeline Williams was our advisor, and she lived in East Orange, et cetera, et cetera. And a few years later on, Mrs. Williams was elected to be the first African American assemblywoman in the state of New Jersey. So I started out as a teenager in this business, but I did get a chance to meet. I mentioned my dear friend. Let's see, who was Thurgood Marshall? No, not Thurgood. Well, Thurgood Marshall. When I was the national chairman of
Medgar Evers.
Medgar Evers. When I was the national chairman of the youth of the NAACP, the NAACP's headquarters was in 20 West 40th Street. That's where the national headquarters of the NAACP was in New York State. It was in New York, and that's where 20 West 40th Street. And I used to go there, and I would see Thurgood Marshall going from one office to another, and I would see the other members. So I got to know them over the years, but I was still, I was 20 years old, 21 years old, whatever. But I got to know them over there. So we had others that were at the that convention out there. Thurgood Marshall, he was out for a cigarette. He went back for a cigarette at the time. And so he was there. But that speech I mentioned about Dr. King speaking, here's a picture of that. I don't know if I showed this.
Yeah.
But in this picture, you've heard of Medgar Evers, right?
Yep. We see
Medgar
him.
Evers was from Mississippi. He was at that convention,
Yeah.
and I got to know him, and we I think you can see him. Let me see if I can pull it. Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, he's up in the top back there. Anyway, Medgar was the head of the Mississippi NAACP, and I got to know him too over the years. And of course, unfortunately, he was killed. I knew a number of people that would kill. I would the convention in 1 year, and then the next year would go, and somebody was leading people to register to vote, and they killed him. A preacher down in Mississippi. They told his congregation to meet him at the courthouse, and we're going to register to vote on Monday. Well, they came by and they killed him. They killed him before he could do that with people. They knew I knew Medgar's, and he was some of the ones I knew. I mean, people gave their life. Maybe that's why, I don't know. I just didn't understand how people don't vote, for instance. People gave their lives for that, or people don't get involved. I mean, I knew people personally who knew they gave their lives for this, so anyway, that's what I've been doing. I went to Rutgers University and organized the first college chapter in New Jersey of the youth when I was a student down there. And they threatened me with throwing me out. They said that I was a troublemaker here at Rutgers in Newark, and I was a troublemaker. And Bob Kervin, you may have never known Bob Kervin. He was there at the same time. We grew up in Belleville early on. So I was organized and established the first college chapter of the NAACP here at Rutgers University. So they said I was a troublemaker, but anyway, I don't think so. But I was very, very happy to have the opportunity to get to know Dr. King, get to know him very well, Medgar Evers, etc. But it hurts because I knew these people personally, and then for them to be lost like that. I went to Dr. King's funeral. Dr. King was in town here the week before, about a week and 7 days, about 7 days before he was killed. If anybody was at Abyssinia Baptist Church the week before he was killed, you saw Dr. King there. He came to speak there, and at that church on West Kenny Street. I came over there in my little car and no place to park, so I double parked in the middle of the street. And if you're around, that Dr. King went to Southside that morning, and he went to a number of other schools, and he ended up at West Kenny Street. What's the church over there? Abyssinia Baptist Church. And I had just gotten there and double parked my car. There was no place to park, and a car pulled up, and it was Dr. King getting out of it. And he said, Bill, wait a second.
Wow.
He said, I'm so tired. He said, I'm just so tired. He said, he started out Southside, and he went to about at least 5 or more, maybe 10 different stops. He said, I'm so tired. He said, they want me to come to Harry wants me to come to his house tonight. He's raising some money for my organization.
Here you go again.
Harry Belafonte.
So when Dr. King came, and I was, like I said, I was double parked in the street. And so he said, I'm just so tired, Bill. He said, I have to make a speech here, but I'm gonna leave to go to New York, and I'd like you to take a ride over with me. They'll bring you back. But anyway, he went in and made a speech. And when he came out of the church, he got to the car, and there was a Newark policeman. I think one Newark policeman, black guy that I knew, was driving Dr. King that day and that evening. And when they came out of the church, Dr. King said, they said, where's Bill? So over here, Dr. King. He said, come on, take a ride over to New York. He'll bring you back. I was double parked, and I said, I'm blocking people, Dr. King. I said, I'll see you next time. Well, the last I saw him was when he was waving goodbye out of the back of the window, and I never saw him again alive. I went to his funeral, 7 or 8 days later. But yeah, I got to know him well, very well, and he was exhausted and so. But anyway, one day I may write a book. I don't know. Right now, what I'm involved in is putting together a statue or what do you call it? A bust or whatever of Thurgood Marshall to be in the Hall of Fame. You've seen the Dr. Martin Luther King building, right? On the new building.
Yeah.
Well, we're gonna put Thurgood Marshall in a bust there. If you've been, I hope you've been there. Or if you haven't, please visit there because we have a bust of let's see who's there. Wilfredo Ginsburg, the black the brother who came here for chocolate. John Lewis. Have you seen John Lewis's? We have a bust of John Lewis in there. Well, we're gonna get one of Thurgood Marshall. But please visit that building because what we have there is a whole exhibit of Dr. King's career, and you get down there, take a look. The first floor, it's beautiful. We had a black artist, a black woman who designed it, and you'll be proud when you see it that we are honoring Dr. King and a bunch of other people. But anyway, I was involved with this stuff since I was a kid. Got to Rutgers, almost got kicked out of Rutgers for doing it, and a lot of stuff like that. But and you know, when Larry Ham decides to have the programs in front of Dr. King building, and I'm there, even though I worked there. The sheriff once told me, "Hey, Payne, you work for the county. What's going on? I see you outside with again. What go, Payne? Come on." I said, "Well, you're gonna have to arrest me. You have to arrest me." But we need to have people stand up on this. But anyway, for me, it's been incredible to have an opportunity to participate in these things. And I just can't get enough people to come out and understand that it's the vote that counts, dog. And the vote that counts. And if they don't like who they like, then turn it to somebody else. But just don't let the vote go. You have to use that vote, dog, on it. And we don't do it, then we just people. The last thing I have to say, I knew people personally. I knew people personally that died. They got killed. They died. I knew Dr. King. All right. I went to his funeral. I knew the other people who. Oh my goodness, Medgar Evers. I mean, I knew them. All right. I mean, Jesus. But anyway, so there's a lot of.
There's a question that I have actually for
Uncle Bill.
James.
Yeah. Uncle Bill, why don't maybe let these young guys ask you a couple questions that are on their mind.
Sure.
Thank you. Good question, right? And this question is for actually could be for both Paynes, right? When Donald Payne Jr. first ran, right? And there, I know he ran against a large field. Many thought, right, like in terms of the critics, pundits, they thought that Ron Rice was going to run away with it, right? And when the election came, it was a blowout, right? Like the Paynes like just demolished. It was like it wasn't close, right? And many people said it's because the Paynes understand politics. They understand the vote. They understand how politics works better. What was the actual like vote counting strategy? Because I've heard this for a long time about Bill Payne, right? I've heard that for a long time that you were a strategist, that you were like, and this is a Payne trait, right? This is one that's passed down, that you were a strategist, that you were a thoughtful political organizer in understanding politics. So when you're saying vote, it's more than voting, I think, with you, I'm guessing, right? Like there's a strategy for politics, and I'm just asking for some wisdom in that. How did you win then, and how is that connected to your overall philosophy?
Can I start, Uncle Bill?
Yes.
Go ahead.
The thing is, the strategy that you're talking about is, for some reason, and I don't know, it's in our DNA. We just have a strong compassion for people. Mm-hmm. And our people and all people, but we care about people. It's not the politics. The politics is the vehicle. The politics is the vehicle that is in place that we have to use in order to help people, with their quality of life, and making sure they have the things they need, and to benefit from this country like other groups have. So the politics is the vehicle, and if it wasn't politics, if it was something else, then we would probably be doing that. But politics is the vehicle for that, and that's why we do what we do. And I just was fortunate to learn from my uncle and my father. I got to watch how this is developed and what is done, and living in it, that that I'm able to do what I do. But it's really a care for people that we have, and and then we move on from there, because I know when my uncle told you about him being a district leader, and he just happened to ask the guy, "Oh, how do you get this job?" He had to talk to the big guy over there. He said, I run it. And
Right.
so my uncle's like, "Oh, well, then if that's the case, so what do you have to do? You run for district leader?" So, because there were jobs that came out of that. And so this guy was saying, like, I control all that. And so, knowing my uncle, like I know him now, knowing him at that age, he's probably, "Oh, you control it. Oh, right. Well, guess what?" And, I don't know how far off base I am, Uncle Bill.
No,
I don't know how far off base I am with that.
Yeah, no, you're pretty right. I mean, the thing that got me, of course, is when I voted, I was happy about voting, my first opportunity to vote, and then curious about it. Just said curious about what was going on here with these 7 or 8 people that were working on books and all that kind of thing. I was very curious, very interested in what happened and how did they get there, as I said before. And if you come up, when we were born and raised in the north part of Newark, and where we were in the minorities. Most of the African Americans lived in the Central Ward, I think, and places like that. We were among the few African Americans that lived, I guess north of Bloomfield Avenue and a place like that, and mostly, and going to school, being one of 2 class kids in my class, Irma Curvin and Dark Curvin. So we lived in a neighborhood that was not very kind to us. The book Little Black Sambo, I'm sure some of you may have seen it, but this was the book that the teacher used when I was in Belleville Elementary School. Little Black Sambo, and she, and I was one of the Bob Curvin sister, and I were the 2 blacks in our class, and there's other ones with white kids. And what happened when the teacher told the story, all the kids would point at us and laugh and giggle and all that kind of stuff and make fun of it. And that's what I was subjected to throughout the years of going to school there. So that's what I grew up with. I guess in my mind, I want to do something about it, because and then they had another book. I don't know if you guys saw it, but Dick and Jane and Spot. They lived in a beautiful neighborhood, and the dog and this and that, wonderful family. But the black family lived in the jungle. You understand that? Wow. The jungle. I mean, black kids, eating, and that's what I was subjected to. And the teacher taught that stuff. The teacher taught that. And so Bill Payne and Irma Curvin sat in the class, and so many other the few black kids that were there. So I grew up with that. I had to do something about it. And the opportunity came with people, I guess, recognizing that I knew, like Leo Carlin, who became mayor. He supported me. I was at Rutgers at that time when I was the district leader also, and I used to speak in my public relations, my political class, political science classes. The teacher would ask me to make lectures and speak, because I had beat the organization. I was now a member of a 21-year-old member of this thing there. So to get that, and some other guys my age, they didn't get involved either. When I went to Rutgers University, I formed the first college chapter of the NAACP in the state of New Jersey, right here in Newark, Rutgers. And I got my 4 other black friends that were down there and finally got them to join, and others did too. But it's difficult to stand on the sides and not do something about it. So,
Uncle Bill,
yeah.
When you ran for councilman, that was at large, right?
Yes.
It was at large, right?
Yep.
Talk about the oh man, I forgot what I wanted to talk about. Oh gee, I forgot my point.
All right. Well,
in the meantime, let's wait for it to come back to you.
Yeah, go ahead.
Payne, let me ask you now, that book you just showed, two questions. One is, how long have you had that book? That's one. And then two, what
you
did
report me to the library?
Huh?
You might report me to the library.
Okay. What did the teacher use that book for? What when she would use that book in class? Was she teaching you how to read, or what?
No. Well, the teacher would say, "Oh, now I would tell you a story about the story of little black Sambo." Okay, and so and so the teacher would just come out with the book and hold it up, because we were in second and third grade or whatever, and the story was about this black family that lived in the jungle. Now here's the son. He's the son of this. Isn't he cute? That's the son. So,
wow.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And so the other kid, the white kids, would, and this was the mother. The mother, she was fixing the breakfast or pancakes or whatever she was fixing. But that was the mother, yeah. And so anyway, that's the white kids. Oh, look at that. And I have another one here.
And I'm just taking a wild guess. The teacher was white.
Oh Lord, of course.
Do fish swim?
This is
wow.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And so the white kids would laugh. Oh, that's funny, and they would point at us. The two black kids, they would all turn around and laugh and turn. And they did that foolishness, And then they would come up with the other book, Dick and Jane and Spot. Dick and Jane. Oh my God. Dick and Jane, and they're playing and they're pretending, and look at the wonderful, they got a dog and all that kind of stuff. That's the white family. And let me see, what else do they have in it? Oh my goodness, what a wonderful family. Look at that. Isn't that great? And the black kid, the story that, can you imagine this story after tell the story about the kid in the jungle, okay? And that's what they were doing. And that's what that fool down in Florida is trying to do.
And so Mr. Payne, right? So DeSantos, and that in South Carolina, Tim Scott, they said that the issue with teaching young kids Black history and correcting what you're showing us is that it would make white children feel bad, right? And they called it indoctrination. So you understand it was okay for them to make us feel bad, make your generation feel bad coming through. However, they're saying if somebody go back now to correct that, what they're saying is that it would make young white children feel bad.
Well, Lord have mercy. Have you heard of the legislation, the Amistad legislation that I? By
the way, Mr. Payne, do you see Principal Kafele asking you a question?
I'm sorry.
He said, Brother Payne, he said, given you being in a classroom with a teacher using Little Black Sambo, what are your thoughts on the implementation of Amistad today?
That was the impetus for Amistad. What he's talking about.
The thing that caused me to do this, number one, is
now when you say caused me to do this, were you involved in the actual passage of the Amistad Act?
It was my legislation. I wrote it and introduced it, and I was the only one that ever did that. My nephew Craig Stanley was a member of the.
All right, Mr. Payne, I got to stop you right there. Congressman,
Yes.
you need to we just need to put on Jay-Z right now. You're going to learn today. You're going to learn today. Go ahead, Mr. Payne.
Right.
Hey, Hawk, I hear that in my head. You're going to learn today. You muted it, Hawk. You muted it, Hawk.
I'm just collecting jewels, so I don't want to interrupt the flow. I'm just sitting here collecting the jewels. Thank you, sir. I appreciate you so much.
I mean, Mr. Payne, you flowing. That's all I gotta say, brother. You flowing.
What was the question, by the way?
So the Amistad Act, you developed. It was your legislation. You passed it, and I think the question is, why and what do you think is going on with it today?
And you were saying you wrote it,
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
Like when you what was the reason why you wrote the legislation, and what did you expect from it?
Well, you know, the movie The Amistad came out somewhere back there. The movie with where the enslaved people were captured, and then they got up to New England where they were, and of course they were freed eventually. And I that was around the time, I think, when I decided that I wanted to introduce this legislation, and also the fact that there was nothing positive that was being taught about African Americans. The little black Sambo stayed in my mind for many, many years, and I had to do something about that. So what I did was the Amistad. The movie The Amistad came out, I think, back there somewhere 20 years or some odd years, and I got the idea to come up with this legislation, teach about the true contributions that we as African Americans made to make this country what it is. That we had to do that, and so I came up with this idea to introduce. The problem, of course, about Black Sambo. All right, Black Sambo was I was taught. Now there's something positive that we did also. There was something that we must have done, and I began to say, well, of course we did, but nobody knows about it. Our kids don't know anything about it. The whites, a lot of them knew about it. So what I did, I came up with this what I call factoids, and the factoids were some ideas about what African Americans had done to the history of this country. For instance, I've distributed these things. I came up with this, and some of the things that I decided to tell the people about was Coach Dan Reeves. I don't know if any of you guys remember that. He was with the Giants here for a while, I believe. Is that correct? Anyway, he underwent open heart surgery, and let's see, several years ago in 1893, Dr. Daniel Hale Williams performed the very first successful operation on the human heart. Okay, Dr. Daniel Hale Williams, a black doctor, performed the very first successful operation on the human heart. Well, they never taught anything like black man doing something like that. You've got to be kidding me. So I decided to come up with these facts and pass them out, distribute them to members of the state assembly. Did you guys know anything about here? Read this now. Read each one of them. You'll learn something. All right. So that's when I was out there. And then there was a Dr. Daniel Hale Williams. The very first successful operation on a human heart was in 1893. Dr. Daniel Hale Williams performed the very first successful operation on a human heart. Well, they didn't teach me that. They taught me about little black Sambo, okay? They didn't teach that stuff. It was all negative. So I figured I had to educate people about what we had done there. Just like Garrett Morgan was the invention of the gas mask, okay? He protected soldiers during World War I. And in 1923, he also invented the traffic light that was used to save people crossing the street. A black man, understand? That we did that, all right? And the lubricating device by Elijah McCoy, Elijah McCoy. Let's see, what did he do? And when I told people about he was the railroad cars.
Coupling system for railroad cars.
Yeah. Elijah McCoy created the first self-lubricating device for railroads, because you used to have to, with the friction on the railroad cars and the gears and all, there would be people that had to slap grease on there and oil to keep it lubricated so it wouldn't overheat. Well, Elijah McCoy created the first self-lubricating, where you didn't have to have somebody standing there and stop. The machine could continue to go, and it oiled itself. It dropped oil in it, and he was the one. And there were different iterations of this device, but they would all break down. And so people started asking, and here, check this out. People started asking, no, I don't want that. I don't want that. I want the real McCoy.
Yeah, right.
That's where that came from. I want the real McCoy.
No biting allowed.
Right.
Yeah.
So, that's the kind of thing that we need people to understand.
Yeah. And I can tell you that I introduced this legislation, oh my God, 25 years ago almost. And it's been a hard fight to have schools teach the curriculum. I mean, it's kind of hard sometimes to get black folks to teach it, but I want this is U.S. history. This is not, you know what? We fought in the Revolutionary War. Nobody ever taught me that. Nathan Hale, Patrick Henry, all those guys. Nobody ever taught me. We come to find out that the Battle of Bunker Hill, the black soldiers are up there. They're the ones that beat the British up there, for crying out loud. They don't teach that stuff. And this is what this legislation does. And I've been, believe me, I've been spreading the word around that everywhere, white kids should also learn about this, because the first successful operation on a human heart was by a black doctor. A black doctor did that. And that's on here too. And I've now passed these out everywhere I go. Let people know that these are the things that blacks have done and everywhere. We fought in the war. We fought what? The Tuskegee Airmen. What about the Tuskegee Airmen? We fought in that war, and nobody gave us credit for that. So now this little card that I've passed it out everywhere I go teaches what you mean to tell me if blacks did that? You mean to tell me? Yes, they did. And this is what we.
Uncle Bill,
yes.
I remember what I wanted to ask you. It was with respect to Ed asking about Johnson asking about the politics that we've been in. Just tell them, when you ran for councilman at large, the people that you got involved in your campaign that started with the Bill Payne Civic Association. Name some of the people that used to come to my house on Bach Avenue for the meetings.
Ken Gibson was one. Bill Walls, who was an attorney. Ted Pinkney was one of them. Pearl Beatty, of course. Pearl Beatty. Some of the leaders in our community came and to Bach 19. Was it 19 Bach Avenue?
No, 14. I live at 19 now.
Oh.
We moved across the street.
Okay.
But I just wanted to bring that up. Did you hear what he said? Ken Gibson started in the Bill Payne Civic Association.
Wow.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Ken Gibson started with my uncle, and then became the mayor. He registered to vote in my house.
Wow.
He registered to vote in my house.
Yeah. Ken and I worked together at the Newark Housing Authority. He was an architect, or what? Not an architect, but an
engineer.
And I was working there also, and that's how we first. I think that's where I first met Ken. And I was working there, and I decided to run for mayor of the city of Newark, and Ken Gibson was there. Was a mayor or was a councilman at large?
Councilman,
right? And Adenizio became the mayor, at that time, and George Richardson. I don't know if you remember that name. George Richardson was very high up in Adenizio's campaign, and Adenizio used to tell George, get the Bill Payne. He's got a good campaign going. Get him, let him participate in our activities. But George wouldn't. He didn't want to do that because that would give me some highlights too. But But yeah, we were active. No reason why, and said we did it. The people, the Pearl Beatty and the organization that she was a singer and had a group, and they were in the organization. And oh my goodness, yeah, I guess we were the first ones to run for all city. Other blacks may have run, and
Oh wow!
But we were the whole.
I gotta tell you, man, Jonathan. I'm sure you would probably agree. This has been the quickest hour that we have ever done on any of the shows we've ever done, but especially the Payne Report. I mean, I've just been totally enthralled in everything coming out of your mouth, Mr. Payne.
A lot of history, man. A lot of history.
And we're gonna have to have you back, like at a like it's funny because I've been waiting all day to ask the congressman about the millions of dollars that came to Newark. There's like, I keep seeing it everywhere about all this stuff, and normally we always talk about like the inside baseball and all the other stuff, but you came on. I didn't even know you were coming on. You came on, and it was like, wow, whoa, what? Thurgood Marshall said what? Right, like
because you didn't know he was coming on because the congressman gave me a choice. Right? and it was an easy choice. He gonna give me two names. Come on, you know what, Mr. Payne? I didn't even say it. I said, come on, man, your uncle. Don't even. You know what I mean? I want to jump through the text and say, Congressman, are you playing with us or what? Come on.
Yeah.
We've been asking for your uncle for 5 months. You playing? Come on. You know what I mean? So Congressman, I want to thank you for keeping your word and bringing your uncle through, man. Thank you.
Next time I'll get a chance to talk about the Irvine Turner. I worked with him and people like that way back when. So we got a little bit more to talk about.
Hey, Uncle Bill, they only know Irvine Turner as a street.
right.
That was an actual person. That was an actual person.
Hey, that's a real person.
Yeah. Hey, Uncle Bill, I also, if you feel comfortable talking about it, also kind of the backroom stuff that went on, about your candidacy and, some folks selling out and, like talking about that South Ward stuff with Richardson and, all that. I don't know how much you want to get into that, but I find it intriguing.
Yeah, but we'll have to have another session, I guess. There's a lot to be told. I mean, the talk about Irvine Turner. We should talk about Irvine, of course, and Malcolm X, for instance. I had a debate with Malcolm X.
Good.
Oh my God.
Payne, so you could kind of start talking about when Dr. King came to Newark and you had the opportunity to escort him around, but when he went up to
speak, we did. You missed it, Donna.
He did. I'm just saying, from that point, you could talk about how you and Congressman, the brothers, Hakeem, the brothers, the Jeffrey brothers, how y'all grew up together. You could talk about, I mean, I remember just standing on a corner with you one day, and it was like looking at an encyclopedia book, and then we pulled out A, and then B, and then C, and then D, and it's all right here. It's all right here.
That was his whole hour, Donna. That was a whole hour.
Yeah,
like,
go back.
Coming out.
I mean, you. Hey, look, he finally got the Malcolm. You need.
Right.
Yeah.
And I debated Malcolm X at the end of the show. Right.
Come on. He took all that to get us to there.
Okay, debate. Can we close? Can we close with the thought on debating the Malcolm X?
Yes.
Can you give a little bit about that?
Well, just I don't have time, but Malcolm X came to Seton Hall, Rutgers school, up the pharmacy school up in It was on Broadway, and so I learned about it. And I went to the program. It was sponsored by. When I went to Rutgers, we organized the first college chapter of NAACP in the state of New Jersey. And anyway, we sponsored some programs. Well, Malcolm came to one of them at the pharmacy school, which was up in North Newark. And at some point, I rose my hand, and I wanted to know from Malcolm, how is it that you're going to get the separate state? I said, you said that we should get our own separate state from this country and this and that. And I said, well, how are we going to do that? How are we going to get this separate state and from this government? He said, young man, he said, I figure you're probably a Baptist or whatever, right? You go to church and regular, and your preacher tells you go to heaven, right? He said, we said that we're going to get so we want a separate state or whatnot. He said, whenever your pastor tells you how you're going to get from here to heaven, because you die, you go to heaven. When they tell you how you're going to get from here to heaven, up there, right there, that's when we'll tell our people how we're going to get that separate state. So when you learn that, you'll learn about that as well. And I guess the answer wasn't right because I was surrounded by the fruit of Islam, and I was not allowed to get out of that circle. Malcolm X had nodded to somebody; he was ready to leave, and I didn't know that, except when I was surrounded with him inside of a circle of what was the group that was called
Fruit of Islam?
And there was no way for me to get out. At that time, I was with my wife was there. So, oh my God, they're taking Bill out. What has he done this time? Oh my goodness, look at that. So anyway, they marched me out rather quickly, as a matter of fact, and I was in the circle with Malcolm. And when they got to the car, the door opened up, he got in, and suddenly I was standing out there by myself as they drove away, So they wondered, what the heck did he say? What did Payne do this time? But that was him.
Story of his life.
Yeah, we've had some good times. I'm trying to make this a better world. Some of you may have heard of the junior leaguers and whatnot. Mrs. Mary Birch was the head of that. And, I remember being on her board, helping her raise money to build the up there on Clinton Avenue. Mrs. Mary Birch and her friends, and I was the chairman of the board at the time, and so and that's before I ran for office. I decided, I think it was anyway, I decided that I wanted to do something to make some changes here, and I'm going to keep doing it. So Larry Ham and I are around. We're going to make this a better place for all. I'd like everybody to really participate and get involved, man. And doggone it, let's make sure that we tell everybody that we know, young people in particular and others, that the vote, we can make a change. And don't say, well, they ain't gonna do nothing. You go up in the suburbia the day before election. I'm sorry, Congressman, your time is probably up.
No, go ahead.
I participate, as I said before, with Larry Ham and others, all right, and think that some of the people that get elected with the help that Larry and his people do, and they should show up sometimes too. They should, after the election is over, they should show up and be there. But I tell people that, you go to suburbia the night before election, people are, they make sure you vote tomorrow, and you come down here and be, hey man, shoot, you crazy, you must think. And so we just have to make sure we spread the word, because there's nothing more important. People have died, and maybe the reason why I feel so strong about it is because I personally knew a number of people, preachers from Mississippi, and Malcolm, of course, and Malcolm and Medgar, and people. I knew people, and I knew people. I knew Medgar Evers. I knew him. I talked to Medgar. And Medgar, don't go back there. You can't go back there. They're gonna get you. He said, Bill, have you ever been to Mississippi? No. He said, it's a beautiful state, Bill. Come on, you have to come down and visit. Well, he went back and they killed him, I talked to his wife about that. People that get, I mean, so the least I can do is tell the sheriff, leave me alone. Yeah, I'm going to be picketing in front of the place I work. Tell people that we all need to do that. You know, we can change this thing. We can change it.
Thank you.
You know,
thanks, Uncle Bill.
Thank
and
you.
So now you guys kind of get an idea why I've been able to do the things I do. You're really talking to the
brother Congressman. Before you go on, why don't we give Mr. Payne a round of applause? He was just excellent. Thank you, Mr. Payne.
You could have done that after I got done talking.
No, I wanted to do that for you, and I wanted him to see it because of how you treated us for the last 5 months.
Well, let me just say that, John, to your point about the politics of it and the strategy, if it wasn't for my uncle, none of us would be successful. He's the backbone of this whole thing. Yeah. He's really the driving force. He's the one that's given us our direction. He's the one that has given us our strength. When you asked me how did we first get involved in it, when I ran in that race and was very worried, with running against the mayor of Irvington, my council colleague, Black female senator, and a couple other people. And, I was very concerned. But my uncle told me a long time ago, to thy own self be true. And I've never forgotten that. So that's what's given me my strength. People call you everything but a child of God in this thing, you're this or you're that, you did this, they saw you doing this, was he drunk, all that stuff. You have to know who you are inside. You have to know who you are inside in order to be able to get through all of that, because it's not true.
Right.
So you don't have to respond to it. It's not true. And that has to be good enough for you to understand what the truth is and that you're living a truth. And so, that's what he gave me a long time ago, and I've never forgotten that.
No, well, thank you.
All I can say is, Congressman Payne, man, you are lucky, and how lucky we are that Mr. Payne is just still here, man. Thank you so much. I know sometime when you tell the stories to us, Congressman, about, when you were on the council and how much we learned when you share that. But I got to say, man, what your uncle dropped. Wow.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Just a mic dropping. And yes, we all did learn tonight.
Yes.
Hey, I usually after he gets done, when he used to give a really ruckus speech, I would always say, Uncle Bill, just why don't you tell us how you really feel?
Right.
Don't hold back.
Right. Like when he was like, I got caught out there when I was like, Thurgood Marshall said what?
Yeah.
When he finally got to Malcolm, was a whoa, hold on a second, man.
They didn't want King to speak.
Yeah, right.
That's wild.
Yeah. I'm trying to get this book out of him.
Maybe we just need to do a series of interviews. So we might talk to you about that. Just maybe let's just talk, right? Let's just do a session on either on a all politics so local or on an off day. Just have a series of interviews or just talk to him, and just let's just get the story out, right? Because like he was just like knowledge was just getting dropped out, right? Like whoa, and we haven't even got to like Irvin Turner and the story behind the first Black congressman in Newark, right? Councilman in Newark. So let's talk about this offline and revisit this, because you're right. A lot of these stories just need to be out permanent.
And Congressman, we got the equipment, so we can set it up, put it on video, create some nice tapes that we can turn them into a book at some point. But we need to just start talking to them.
Sounds good. All right, everybody.
Thank you. And Congressman, before you leave, you've been putting out a lot of press releases in the last few days.
Yes.
I just want you, like, I know we're way over time. I know you don't have much time, but 30 seconds and we'll approach it next time. But you've been doing a lot of work talking about a lot of stuff that has been done and money that's been ignored.
And not only press releases, he's been on the floor talking. He ain't just writing it. He's been down there talking.
Yeah. I've been pretty busy this cycle. You know, we don't have the leadership, so got a lot more time on your hands to do some other stuff. But I thank you for that, and I'm really trying to get the exposure out there after 10 years of the work I've done. I've done the work. I just need people to understand what I've done, and so.
Like, I think $6 million sometime like recently is coming to this district.
Oh yeah. That I've been, this week I did a big check thing of different organizations that I helped. I gave them Newark Emergency Services got $1 million. West Orange Park got $950,000. Newark Community Health Centers got over $1 million. Somebody got $2 million. So yeah, I'm finally, by detail, since I have to break it down so people understand, what I'm doing. So.
No, I appreciate that.
So he's not an Oprah Winfrey of Newark. You get a check. You get a check. You get a check.
About that.
Yes, he is.
Go ahead, Mr. Payne.
I want to thank all of you. What you're doing is very important to get the word out and that kind of business. It's great to see our young people interested in government and the kinds of things that can be done.
They're not young, Uncle Bill. You meant younger. You meant younger people.
I'll run with young. I'll run with that.
Assemblyman, still young. You're still young.
Assemblyman, we always do ask a question before everybody leaves. While you're out there doing that work, is there a hip hop artist, individual, or group that you listen to that inspires you?
Me?
That's specifically you, sir.
We'll why don't we hold that for the next time, and that way I get a chance to come again.
Okay.
All right.
That's a good answer.
That's fair.
That's a good answer. Well, thank you so much.
Can I just say something right there?
Yeah.
Yo, Rhino, I know you're gonna agree with me. Listen to Mr. Payne talk. Didn't You Must Learn pop into your head like 3-4 times?
Man.
Yeah.
It was in mine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In mine.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, everybody.
Like, yo, that's it for me.
Thank you.
Hey,
Take
Congressman,
care.
Thank you, Congressman.
Hang on for a
we
second.
cool now, Congressman.
Thank you,
All right, Uncle Bill.
Thank you.
All right, and then
I love
till
you.
next week.
Love
Hope
you.
to see you again.
All right.